Hello everyone, and welcome to the Kubernetes Contributors Workshop, um, organized as part of the Kubernetes Communities Bengaluru. I'm Divya, and along with me, I have like a few of my friends from the Kubernetes community, and also Arvind and Sayyam here, who are probably not visible on video, but thank you so much, the KCB Bangalore team, for giving us this opportunity and sort of having folks learn more about the Kubernetes ecosystem. And we can't wait to get started. So before we do, we want you all to know who we are, and it's just plain courtesy that we introduce ourselves. So Nikita and Abdul, do you all want to go first with your experiences and your respective introductions?
Sure, I can happy to start. So hey everyone, really nice to see so many people joining early in the morning. I still feel that name was a bit early. And yeah, really nice to see you all here. So I'm assuming most of you all are here because you want to get started with contributing to Kubernetes, and a little bit about how I got started. So I came across this project called Kubernetes because I was learning Go at the time, and I saw that Kubernetes was the biggest project, and I was a student there. So I was still in college, and I noticed that Kubernetes was participating in the Google Summer of Code internship program. I knew Go back then, and I thought this was a really cool open source project, so let me just try applying. I applied, got selected, and I worked on Kubernetes for around 4 to 5 months. And it was a really wonderful experience. If you use CRDs before, so like the validation, design, and like the status and the scale, sub-resources designed for CRDs. So that was what I'd done during my internship program. And I really enjoyed it. Like during the whole internship, it wasn't just like this project that I was working on. Kubernetes has different groups as well. So I was like getting involved with release, testing. There was a group called Contributor Experience that deals with automation for the Kubernetes project, and making sure like when people contribute, like you all here, they have a good experience. So I was also getting involved with that. And then luckily, like just consistently contributing, got selected as a technical lead for that group contributor experience. I've been mainly like working on the policy and the automation, the GitHub automation for the Kubernetes project. Other than that, like being involved in the API side of things, CRDs, release, testing, and a bunch of other places, kubectl, and so on. And later I realized like, hey, I really love this community and I want to do more. So I also like applied for the steering committee, didn't get selected the first time, got selected the next year. So being involved in like governance aspects of the project too. So yeah, that's kind of it. And like I'm really hoping to see more contributors from India after the session. So that's me. Nabaran, do you want to go next?
Yep. Thanks for the awesome intro, Nikita. So hi everyone, I am Nabaran, and welcome everyone this morning to this Kubernetes contributor workshop. Thanks all for giving like 4 hours of your time to this workshop in order to learn how you can start contributing to Kubernetes. As for me, I started in the Kubernetes community around 2 years back. I started with tinkering around the Kubernetes Python client, primarily on the basis that I had been using it as part of one of our internal products, and we're building kind of a pass, and it was a natural flow to improve the client and to get started. How does the client ecosystem work? Then I got involved with the release mechanics of Kubernetes, primarily the Kubernetes release team and the release engineering group. And then I got involved with several roles in the release team, and eventually led the last Kubernetes release, which was Kubernetes 1.21. Apart from that, I have been involved with API Missionary contributor experience as in various roles, and that's where I am right now. So these days I'm tinkering with API Missionary architecture and bits and pieces about CLI and release. So yeah, that's all about me. You will also hear a lot about the release team shadow program later on in this session. With that, Arsh and Madhav are also helping us, who have also been through the new contributors journey in the Kubernetes community. I would also like them to introduce themselves. Who wants to go first? Arsh, Madhav.
Arsh, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Arsh. Like Naban said, me and Madhav are fairly new. I am currently in my second year of college, and I got introduced to the community through a program called Linux Foundation Mentorship. It is just like GSOC, which Nikita mentioned. But yeah, that was like, I think 4 or 5 months ago. And so I found working on, just like her, I found working on my project very interesting, made friends here. So I've been sticking around since then. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Madhav, do you want to go next?
Sure. So this is sort of full circle for me because I started, like, my journey in Kubernetes began with this workshop in Jan. So this workshop happened in Jan, so that's how I got started. And I remember, like, there was so much happening, and I'm like, okay, this seems really cool, but also overwhelming. But these people seem really nice, so I don't know, they might be open to helping me out. So I went and joined the Slack, and things just worked out after that. And yeah, so since then I've been trying to help out in various different places wherever I can. I mainly try and work on, like, the node and API machinery side of things. I haven't been able to do much, but hopefully soon enough. But yeah, and that's a little bit about me. And yeah, I'm a student as well currently.
I would disagree when you say that you haven't been able to do much, Madhav. You've been doing pretty well for yourself, and it's a fun community. And I'm not trying to be a marketing or salesperson here and say please join us, but it's a fun place to be because you really get to make friends who are working on similar stuff and who are interested in the same things as you. And there are not a lot of avenues on the internet where so many like-minded people can actually get together and come together towards maybe developing a software. And I know I sound like a nerd while saying it, that it's a fun thing to code or it's a fun thing to develop software together, but it's true. It's just really fun to be a part of something that's bigger than your academic or your professional career. So yeah, without further ado, let me just go ahead and introduce myself, because I could go on about how fun the community is for like another 50 minutes. So I'm Divya, and I am fairly new. I like to think of myself as fairly new because I joined the community last year, just before the pandemic began. And it turns out it was perfect timing because I really got to explore the facets of the community that I was interested in at that point of time. So I started my contribution with documentation edits and website blogs and stuff like that. It was it was not technically what you would call code contribution. Still don't do a lot of code contribution. Actually, I don't do any code contribution. I am part of the release team, have been for the past 3 cycles. I shadow the release team lead currently for the 1.22 cycle. Apart from that, I have been dabbling in bits and pieces in stuff that interests me around the community. So I have had no specific area of contribution where I actually found my true passion and calling or something like that. I like understanding via dabbling and experimenting. So that's how I have gone about learning more and more about Kubernetes, because it's something that I'm required to know as part of my day job as well. So that being said, honestly, sorry, um, the community in itself has shaped my experience, and I believe I speak for all of us when I say that it's a community that has sort of given us the good experiences that we have been so fortunate to receive. So it's just fair enough that I actually speak about the community and how within the project we are organized, since it's a large project, and we probably already know that, given that we have a lot of contributors dipping in and out, and a lot of sustained contributors chipping in. So how is it organized, and how is the project functioning at a very high level is what we're going to look at in this section. So the KX community in general is organized into various subgroups, because like I said before, we have a lot of contributors. I think I might not be too off the mark when I say that we have around 50,000 plus contributions coming in every year. So it is organized into subgroups as one being the special interest groups, and then the next one being a working group, the third one being a user group, and the fourth one being a committee. Now, even within the special interest group, we have a further subdivision known as a sub-project, and we shall look at what each of these subgroups, so to say, are responsible for, or what aspect of the tool they deal with, that sort of thing. Now, this is a very old picture, and I'm sure when Madhav saw this in January, he probably recognizes this photo, because this was the exact same photo that we used. We haven't updated it for a while because it constantly keeps on changing, and one of our initiatives is to actually sort of get this done, have an automatic update done as in when new committees and groups are added. But this is an overall view of how the Kubernetes project is organized. Some user groups, working groups might be missing here and there, but there's a good representation. So as you can see, the stuff at the top mainly are committees in the orange color. The SIGs, that is special interest groups, are marked in blue. You have various SIGs which we shall walk through in the next couple of slides. And then there are also working groups and user groups that are highlighted in green here. Now, since this image was published, there have been few additions to all of the subgroups here. So I have updated the slides to reflect that. So don't be worried if you can't completely gather stuff from the slide because of the small font or whatever. So don't worry about that. We'll be walking through most of the SIGs and the other subgroups. So that being said, what is a SIG, or a special interest group? Now, like we have a lot of contributors, and it's not possible humanly for a project to be sustainable enough with the amount of contributions coming in every year and having no sort of organization or no sort of hierarchical structure. So what was decided in the Kubernetes community was to sort of have special interest groups that is sort of like a small project within the Kubernetes project itself. And what it would focus on, it depends upon the various categories that we have. So that brings us to the various categories of SIGs, which one of them is the feature area. It specifically focuses on features for the Kubernetes tool. Plumbing, which basically deals with the overall tooling of the project. Then there's Meta, which basically covers the span of the community, but is not sort of, specialized in any type of, feature or any type of, specific area of the SIG. So, for example, one of the meta SIGs that we are going to look at is the SIG release, which I am part of and Nabru has been part of. So, SIG release basically deals with the release of the Kubernetes artifacts that you get, the various versions of the Kubernetes artifacts that you get every cycle. So, like I mentioned, it spans across the entire community. It is not relegated to just one aspect or just one feature area. Then, of course, we have docs, because no good community can be there without no good community or open source project can function effectively without documentation, right? So we have docs, and even within docs, we have a lot of sub SIGs, if I may say so. And then we have the cloud provider SIGs, because obviously, Kubernetes is a product that has been turned into a managed service with many cloud providers. So we have that as well. Now, these are examples of feature area SIGs. As you can see, there are quite a few of them, and each of them deal with this different feature aspects of the Kubernetes tool. Technically, if you look at it, I think SIG node is something Madhav is a part of, and there's SIG network that deals with the network aspects. There's SIG almost all of these are like self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go and tell you what everything is responsible for, but if for a broad gist, every feature area SIG is responsible for features within the Kubernetes. Now, plumbing SIGs, like I mentioned, deals with the overarching tooling and everything else. So SIG API, machinery, cluster lifecycle, instrumentation are the plumbing SIGs here. Meta SIGs, like I mentioned, are spanning the breadth of the project. It is not specific to one area. Like I mentioned, SIG release is one of them. SIG contributor experience. Now, again, contributors can be from different SIGs, right? It is not relegated to one specific area of the project. So, contributor experience deals with contributors across the project, and it's basically a SIG that is responsible for a lot of things, not that is not limited to your new contributor workshops like we have here. We have stuff like the mentoring sub project. We have a lot of other things that go on within the contributor experience, but long and short of it is that it is not relegated to one specific area, and it deals with every SIG, irrespective of whether or not it's a feature or a plumbing or whatever other SIG that is. Then you have documentation and website, which basically deals with documentation and website, because like I said before, Kubernetes is a huge open source project, and it's a given that we require a lot of documentation and a lot of good documentation for the widespread adoption of the project. So SIG Docs is one of the main documentation SIGs within the project. The Docs blog basically deals with the blogging aspect of the website that we have, and any of your feature blogs or any of the blogs that you want to publish on the Kubernetes website goes through the review process for of this particular SIG. Then we have a subsection, and I would say subsection, subgroup maybe, of SIG Docs, which basically deals with the security aspect of the security aspect of the Kubernetes project, and it is responsible for the documentation of all the security features and ensuring that they're as up to date as possible. So SIG security docs is another one. It's a relatively newer SIG as compared to the other ones, but it's there, and it's I think it has a bi-weekly call on Thursdays. Not sure of the time though, because I'm bad with time zones, unfortunately. Then we have cloud providers, wherein different cloud providers are sub projects of the SIG. So this slide like runs into two other slides here, and you have the various cloud providers, almost all of them that you can think about: your Alibaba, AWS, Azure, GCP, Huawei, IBM, OpenStack, vSphere. So all of that is there. But now we also spoke about working groups and sub projects, right? As other sections within the community. So what are they? Now, in some areas, there are uh, particular features or particular things that require intersig effort. So working groups are formed towards facilitating that intersig collaboration. Now, you might ask, how is it different from a metasig? Now, metasig is basically spanning the entire breadth of the project. It's not towards. I mean, it does promote intersig collaboration. Everything is basically focused on collaboration here, but in case of working groups, it's focused on more collaboration between 2 or 3 SIGs, not like an entire breadth of the community. Now, in that case, what is a sub project? Now, if even within SIGs, we have specific focus areas, right? So, in a in the release SIG, for instance, we have a focus on developing better tools for improving our release processes, and having these branch management areas that we can improve on. So we have release management as a specific sub project under the release SIG release, and there are other sub projects as well. So for tools, we have like example kubectl, kubescript, etc. We have specific sub projects. We even have different sub projects that achieve certain goals. So for example, we have like the computer site, that is a sub project within the SIG context, and we have certain areas that we probably want to target within a particular SIG. So machine learning is another sub project which is there. Now, these are the different working groups that are there within our community. And each of these, like I mentioned before, focus on intersig efforts, and 2 or more SIGs are involved, in collaboration um, towards achieving a common goal. Sub projects. Now, these are some of the sub projects that are there. Couldn't list all of them really, because that was a really huge list, and I think it ran into 10 or more slides when I actually tried to list it. So couldn't list all of them. But these are some of the sub projects that are there. Now, when we talk about user groups, which is the third category, we have all these working groups and special interest groups, and even the sub projects having codebase ownership of their own tooling or whatever it is that they're trying to put up. But in case of user groups, we do not have codebase ownership. Um, it is just an organizational feature that we have for shared topics of interest among really large number of users, which is why we have like 2 user groups as of today. One is the big data user group, and another one is the VMware user group. And last but not the least, we have committees. So at the top of all of this, we require folks who can sort of guide us and deal with all the governance stuff that is sort of, a requisite when you have such a large open source community. And even if you do not have, you need somebody to take care of the governance, right? You need to have people setting the rules and regulations and stuff like that. So these committees are there that steering security response and code of conduct. Now, security response was previously known as product security, it was recently renamed, and these three are the committees within the project, and the working group, user group, whatever other stuff that I've mentioned before, you can just join them. You can just join the mailing list, you can just join the Slack, and you will be a part of that particular group. But in case of a committee, you have to be elected or invited to be a part of the committee, which is what I guess Nikita alluded to in her, introductory speech. So she had sort of, put in her name in the ballot for one of the elections for the steering committee, and I think the first time she didn't get in, and the second time she got in was what she said. But uh, the gist of this is that these are for contributors who have been there for long. I mean, I wouldn't say been there for long, but who basically are interested in the governance stuff and are able to contribute towards governance related activities in the project. That being said, I have spoken about a lot of things here. And you might be wondering right now, how do I pick the right SIG? Because there are so many things that the community is working on. How do I understand where I fit in? So first of all, you even before figuring out what specific projects or areas you want to work on, you need to sort of figure out what are your skill sets. That would be, I think, the very first area that I would like everyone to sort of focus on. Figure out what are your skill sets and what are your strengths, and basis that, see what specific projects or areas you would like to work on, and that can leverage your strengths. If you are not looking to sort of leverage your strengths, and if you're looking to learn something new, see if there are good first issues, and that's something I guess that will be covered in the later half. So figure out in that manner what is the specific strength or skill that you would like to develop, or you already have that can be leveraged. After that, of course, figuring out the specific areas or projects that you can work on comes naturally. And once you figure both of these out, you will need to find out which particular group covers that, whether it's a SIG or it's a working group or it's a user group. You will need to figure that out. So if you, obviously this is a very intimidating task and you might not get it right at the first go, which is why we have the contributor experience Slack. So you can definitely ask on the SIG contribute Slack, and we're always ready to help out. So if not at the SIG contribute Slack, we even have an Indian specific in-dev one, which I'll be posting the link to in the next couple of slides. So you can ask us there as well. And not at this particular conference maybe, but there are at KubeCon and all the other conferences that we have new contributor workshops. So we have SIG specific intros, introductory sessions. So you can go there and sort of get to know who you'll be working with and what are the targeted areas, and join that SIG or sub project directly. Now, if you're joining a working group or a sub project, also join the corresponding SIG, because if you're the sub project or the working group is always aligned with a specific SIG, so it makes sense to sort of join this SIG as well. Now, how do I join a SIG? Because I've been speaking about how to figure out where you fit in, But actually joining a SIG is a totally different ballgame. So how do I join a SIG? Now, join the SIG specific mailing list. Now that's a no-brainer. But again, where do you find it? Because that's something that you should know, right? Because the mailing lists are not exactly something you'll find on typing it out on Google. So you actually need to understand where you'll find the mailing list. So that is what I'm going to be showing right now. So bear with me as I switch screens and stop the sharing for a minute. Just a second. All right. So if you can see here, is everybody able to see my screen? It should be a Windows tab. Not Windows, sorry. It should be a Google Chrome tab. Okay. So if you can see here, you can see the Kubernetes community page, right? So if in that page, you can see there are a list of the various SIGs that are there within the project. So you have SIG CLI, SIG auto scaling. You even have the committees, which basically you cannot join without an invitation. So you have the committees as well, and you have all the actual organizational subgroups within this page. And each of these organizational subgroups basically has their own charter, their readmes and everything, where you can find the respective information on how to join a mailing list. So for example, I'm just going to go to Signal because that's something I'm not part of. And if you can see here, this is relevant to the node special interest group. You have the regular meeting when it is scheduled, and you have the meeting notes and agenda link here. All of this is there. And if you see here, contact, you have the Slack channel, and you also have the mailing list. So you just click this, and just a second. Right. So here we open, and if you can see here, there's a join group section, and just click it. And, I'll just have a send daily summaries. That's it. That's as simple as that. You just have to join the group. And of course, if you actually do want to, participate in conversations, we have the Slack channel as well. Mailing lists are, for discussions, long form discussions. But if you want to have, async conversations over a particular thing, Slack is your best bet. That being said, we also have the next section of our presentation, which basically deals with communication. So let me just switch there again. Sorry for the constant switching, but had to be done since it would be really bad if I didn't show you all how to join a SIG. So yeah. So this section of the presentation deals with communication within the community. So as I showed you before, we have Slack, we have mailing lists, and we have all the plethora of avenues wherein we discuss all the Kubernetes community related stuff, as well as feature stuff, as well as other things related to the community. So before that, sorry. So before that, it's absolutely important that you know that every single thing that we speak about, whether it's on the mailing list, whether it's on your Slack, or whether it's even on the meetings, it's governed by the Kubernetes Community Code of Conduct, which basically boils down to be nice to each other. I mean, you do not want to be at the receiving end or at the giving end of abusive behavior or harassing language, because that's just not nice, right? As humans, we wouldn't expect that to be done to us. So why would you do it to anybody else? So Kubernetes Community Code of Conduct underlies all our communications, and you basically have to abide by it if you are, a part of any of the meetings or conversations within the avenues that I spoke of before. So given the number of people and given the number of time zones, companies, not even companies, professional levels that we are working at, we have a lot of avenues to keep in touch. So how do we do it? So first, of course, is the mailing list, which I just showed you. It's a good form of discussions and to basically go back and forth over something that requires consensus. For more immediate forms, we have Slack and Zoom. Zoom is when you obviously have a requirement for in-person communication, so that's when that comes into place. And Slack is again an async form of Zoom, so that you have that feeling of staying connected, even even if it's just via text message. So those are the three avenues. Then you might say that we have so many contributors. How is it possible that you'll keep in touch? So we are trying to move towards a sync. We haven't reached there yet. We aren't perfect, but we are trying. So, what are some of the async initiatives within the community have been highlighted here? So, in the SIG contribute Slack, we try to alternate between Slack threads and fortnightly Zoom meeting, so that everybody has a chance to contribute in case they cannot actually attend the Zoom meeting. There even within the release team, when we have meetings, we have APAC friendly timings separately scheduled for those joining in from the other side of the globe. So for example, for this cycle, we have the APAC friendly release team meeting today evening at 7:30 p.m. IST, and it's a recurrent one across the particular cycle. Then we also ensure that we have more of our conversations on Slack and mailing lists, because they are easier to sort of peruse and go through when you are based in a different time zone from like your colleagues who are in the Kubernetes community. So it helps, but obviously sometimes it helps to also have that in-person interaction, because otherwise how will you actually know and put a face to the name that you've been emailing and slacking with for so long. So sometimes, yes, it's good to have meetings, but we try and keep most of our conversations to Slack and mailing lists. Now, because I've said all of this, you might think that we are purely a boring community wherein we just talk about really technical stuff and we nod out over code, but that's not really the case. We try to spice up our meetings a little bit sometimes, and this is like a clear picture of how we try and have our fun even when doing work. So this is like one of the meetings that happened not recently, of course, because it was a little bit. I think it was in 2019. I'm not sure, but yeah. That being said, that's a meeting that was really fun. And when we're talking about Slack, we really wouldn't want you to leave your emoji game behind, and we have like a really huge list of emojis on Slack. So please don't think that because we are all working towards delivering a software, you have to be really serious and put your serious caps on and work. You do have to do that, but you also have to ensure that you have fun, and you bring in your own individual piece of jazz with you. So we have a lot of emojis. Feel free to use them. And for all those who are joining from India, and I'm sure most of us are, because this is too late for the US, too early for the UK, and India is like the only timing right now that is perfect. So if for Indian specific folks, you are requested to join the Slack. The step, that's the link is given to step 1. Find the in-dev, end users, and end events channels on Slack. Say hi and introduce yourself, and use how many ever emojis you can. Really. And we promise we won't sue you if you use too many emojis. Really, I mean, we expect you to use emojis. And this is basically, I guess, Madhav's post. So Madhav, here's your claim to fame. So this is a post on our India channel, and here's where we also, sort of help folks by pushing in good first issues and things that come to our notice, so that we can help others get introduced to the project. So please, 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 if you have, if you have not already, please go and join in the slack.kx.io and tell us a hi there. And this is example of a few of the stuff that comes in on in-dev. So yeah. That being said, I think we are up for a break right now, Navroon and Nikita. Am I right? Or are we going to continue with Kubernetes repositories as of now?
We're going to take a break after the tour of repositories.
Okay. So I shall just hand it over to you, Nikita. And thanks everyone for attending. So yeah, I'll just stop sharing.
Hey everyone, just give me a minute to sort out the screen. Just a second. Zoom on Linux. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen.
Yep.
Do you see something black on top, or?
Yes, we do see something black on top.
Okay. So there are a lot of repositories in Kubernetes, right? And it can get confusing. Like one of the biggest questions that people always ask us is like, which repository do I contribute to? Is it like the main Kubernetes repository? It has 2,000 open PRs and 2,000 open issues. There are like almost hundreds of other repos. So which one do we work on? We actually have a ton of slides about this, but I might just like buzz through them, and I'm just going to show you things on GitHub. So there are a few project-based repositories. So like we've talked about the Kubernetes community repository a lot. So if you want to find out which SIGs there are in the project, or what are the mailing lists, what are the Slack channels, here's where you go to. I'm going to talk about the enhancements repo in a bit. There are steering repos related to governance documents, but I don't think you need to care about so much at this point. So these slides would be useful to refer back, but I'm just going to like zap through some of them right now. For documentation, we have one main repository, so that's Kubernetes /. So one more thing, since we talk about Kubernetes most of the time, we don't want to keep saying Kubernetes every single time when we refer to repository. So we usually just shorten it as K. So when we say K/website, it means github.com/Kubernetes/website. And then you have another developer tools related things. So like you have, if you worked on controllers, so you know there's this repository called sample controller, which has an example for how to write controllers, code generators. I mean, if you've written clients or controllers or done basically anything on top of like written tools on top of the Kubernetes API, you've probably interacted with the Kubernetes code generator. So there is one project about that as well. Staging repositories, I'm going to cover it a little bit later, but just keep in mind that there is something called stage and repositories, and this is very, very important to the Kubernetes project, and we'll see why and what that means later on. We have SIG repositories. I will not cover all of them, but like we talked about SIG, so each SIG owns a set of repositories. So release owns the release one, federation is owned by SIG multi-cluster, and so on. Cloud provider repositories, if you work on you have experience on a particular cloud provider and you want to contribute only in that direction, this is where you look at. Products and tools, like we talked about kubectl in the chat just right now. We have that dashboard, minikubes if you use minikube. I think there's one project that's not covered here, but like kind is used a lot nowadays. So we have a project on kind also that you can contribute to. Then there's this thing called Kubernetes 6. So we have multiple GitHub organizations. So we have the Kubernetes GitHub org, the Kubernetes client GitHub org, the Kubernetes 6 GitHub org. So it can get a little confusing. In the Kubernetes GitHub org, we just have the main Kubernetes project and some more projects surrounding it. So like anything that encompasses not just one SIG, but multiple SIGs, that usually goes there. So if you want to contribute to the main Kubernetes project, that's where you look. But nowadays, most of the development that we do happens in the Kubernetes 6 GitHub organization. So we have slightly less scoped repositories over there. So if you want to contribute to like KubeBuilder, so if you've written controllers, you know, there's this project called KubeBuilder or kind, or I'm just like blanking out on names right now, but they're like, I think 100 or 97 or 100 repositories over there. So take your pick, go see which SIGs you like and want to contribute to. I can actually show you how you can look through that. So when you're if you go to Kubernetes / let's just go to Kubernetes 6 actually. So when you go to Kubernetes 6, you have 130 repositories over here, which are a lot. But just one thing I want to call out, I won't go over every one of them, is that each repository has this topic label over here. So if you say Kate SIG cluster life, so like if you're interested in only the repositories that say cluster lifecycle owns, so you click on this Kate SIG cluster lifecycle, and it will show you all the Kubernetes 6 repositories that cluster lifecycle has. Similarly, you can do it for whatever SIG, like if you're interested in CLI or API machinery, which is a very popular SIG, you can look into that, storage, networking, whatever area you're interested in. Right, so look through those. So for example, in Kubernetes 6 alone, we have 130 of them. There are a lot of members too. So like there's a lot of activity that goes on in the Kubernetes project. So I'd definitely say that, you know, nowadays, a lot of activity happens here. So if you want to start out, this might actually be a better place because like so like you look at the main Kubernetes repository, so many contributors, so much activity happening, 2000 open pull requests, it can sometimes get intimidating. If you want to start small, pick a Kubernetes 6 repository, I'd say, because it has slightly less number of contributors, and you can get like dedicated mentorship. I mean, you can get even in Kubernetes, but like you can have a dedicated communication channels with small set of contributors. So that's pretty much all I'd say about the tour of repositories. I want to keep it very quick. We'll take a small break right now. Go have your coffee or breakfast, and then we'll join in, I guess, 10 minutes later. So thanks everyone. Let's take a small break. If you have any questions, please feel to like drop them in chat again, and we can cover that in the session or in the chat. And a quick reminder again, we have swags at the end. So we'll just ask you to submit a very small pull request. You don't have to write code or anything. It's pretty simple. And once you submit that, you'll get a Kubernetes t-shirt. So stay until the end if you'd like to have that.
Also, for all those who've not joined in, please do say hi on the Kubernetes Slack, because I can see quite a few highs coming in, but I don't think that's 73 participants all over there. So do join in and say hi, because we promise we don't eat people for breakfast. So yeah.
We'll start at 11 o'clock IST then. Other folks who are still around, like, and have not really gone away from the call, I'm really curious to understand like where you all are from and what you're looking, like if you're looking to get started with contributing or what you're looking to get out of this workshop. Feel free to unmute yourself and talk, by the way, like.
All right, looks like nobody's going, so I'll go. Uh, I'm Akash. I'm from Bangalore. I have met Nabaran over, I think, a PyCon talk someday, and we connected on LinkedIn, so that's how I know him. And I saw this workshop coming up. I was already interested in Kubernetes, but didn't know where to start off. So this seemed like a great start, so I just signed up. And you said what am I looking for? I'm actually looking for $1 billion, but I doubt I'll find it here. So I'm gonna settle with just how to get started with Kubernetes.
Well,
I
you
wish
can
we
make
could
$1
all
billion
get that.
after learning Kubernetes.
That'd be amazing, by the way. Ultimate goal, yeah.
That's like a nice incentive to start contributing to Kubernetes.
So incidentally, actually know lots of people who contribute because they're like maybe looking for a change of jobs, and that's also totally a valid reason, to be honest. And it works out pretty well. Nabaran and I work for VMware, and I got this job because like we work on open source, like upstream Kubernetes only as part of a day job, and we got this job because we were contributing. And almost like pretty much every job I've had in my career got because of like open source contributions, and I know lots of people who've got that. So it's definitely like there are like monetary incentives that come with it, but maybe not just like $1 billion. So that would be nice.
Believe it or not, I never thought that I'd join an open source job further down the line. I started contributing just because I liked it, but it's a nice incentive at the end of the day that you get to work on open source full time as your day job. So that's also one thing you get out of contributing to a project.
Great.
Hey guys, this is Vibhor here. I'm based out of Pune. I really wanted to do some sort of contribution to open source community because all my experience as an IT professional, I've been pulling information from them using Stack Overflows and Googles and everything, so all those things. So it is just a token of appreciation, I think, in my own very way. I'll put it back into the community and see what I can do. Plus an open source enthusiast, getting introduced with one of my friend who might be presenting, who is actually presenting on the conference day as well. So really liking planning and drawing my points and how I'll proceed on the preparing a plan, and hopefully I'll start contributing to Kubernetes or any open source community as soon as I can. And I'm really looking forward for the client stuff. I mean, very specific on technical aspect. I'm really looking forward for the Kubernetes client with various languages specific to Python and JavaScript. And on the other SIG, I really find very intuitive was about the nodes itself, the Kubernetes nodes. So looking forward on those aspects. Thank you.
If you're interested with the Kubernetes clients, do join the Kubernetes-client channel on the Kubernetes Slack. Usually,
Sure.
like all client discussions happen there, and that's really great that you're contributing back to the community from which you derived value. Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I am Rohan. Before I say anything, just a big shout out to the team behind the Kubernetes Docs. So to get a proper understanding of how Kubernetes works, so I sort of started reading the whole concepts, that particular section, and I read it completely. And I can say that it is so very well written and organized that it became a good starting point for me to understand Kubernetes. So I have been writing minor code, right, to just understand how the controllers work and pods work. I saw a 2018 KCD Mumbai, YouTube video where I got to understand like how you can call the API and everything. But right now my interest lies in the SIG API, API auto scaling. Sorry, right. So I am kind of stuck in the yeah, I know the basics how to call the API, but I want to venture forward. So for a beginner like me, how do I do that? And one more good thing that I found, the Kubernetes community repo, whenever I was stuck, like how to find a particular answer to a particular question. So Kubernetes community repo, always helped me, and I signed up for a mentorship program as well. But so far, how do I get outside this blocker that I have right now? Any suggestions from your experience that you've had, in your starting days?
So can you actually elaborate on that? So I'm not sure I quite got it. So you mentioned you worked on APIs and you're looking at auto scaling, but where?
Yeah, so I have so I just joined the auto scaling SIG, okay, because I find that, yeah, that's my area of interest, right? And I started compiling the binary kubectl and so what's happening is, yeah, I know where the API auto scaling API code resides, right? I am trying to find my way to debug that particular code. So that debugging process is a little bit difficult for me. So any pointers that you can give me so that I can get there.
Depends. I'd say like which part of the code you're changing. What I usually do for debugging such things is a little bit old school sometimes, to start a lot of print lines. So like we also have this thing called klog that we use. That's the main logging library. So I usually just tend to add a lot of klog lines to debug things. But I don't extensively use this, but I know like if you use VS Code or Golang, it also has a debugging functionality, right?
Right.
So lots of people actually use that, and I've seen the Golang one in action, and my colleague was screen sharing, and it looked pretty good. Even for the actual Kubernetes code base. So that could be one thing. I mean, if you're looking specifically for debugging, but if you're looking for like diving into code on a particular thing, actually just like reach out to the SIG, because lots of SIGs also do like code base walkthrough kind of a thing. So if it's code base, understanding the code base that you're interested in, debugging. Nabarun, do you have anything else you want to add on this? You've been looking at Golang
and even I try to find my way through FMT print events. So yeah. I mean, as of now, I've been doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I also do like log statements just to debug what is happening. I don't really do like debugging line breaks, because I feel like have been doing the print statement thing and it works great for me. But it also depends on person to person, like how you do debugging usually. So it's like your mileage varies according to your past experience.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Sure. Well, we are 3 minutes past 11, so I mean we plan to end this early, so we'll have enough time at the end to talk to. So I just want to quickly cover the presentation as well. So I'm just gonna share my screen again. Let's start. We also need to do a code base walkthrough, by the way, in a minute, in a couple of minutes. Just a second. So I'm hoping, like, I know everyone's like shut their cameras off, but I hope everyone's back from the coffee break. So let's just get started. I'm guessing like you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we've seen what different kinds of repos are there in Kubernetes. So let's actually understand how features get added in these projects, right? Like that's an important thing. Features, we all care about that. Most folks are familiar with the usual workflow for open source projects. So if you want to add a feature, the common steps are usually we create a GitHub issue for a feature request and add the implementation in a pull request, right? Issue, pull request. But one key thing that comes before all of this is the design of the feature, along with thorough considerations of the implications of the change that the feature would bring in. And these implications become really important for a big project like Kubernetes. And this design phase, that's why it's a very big thing in Kubernetes, to the point that we actually have a new name for it. So we call it KEPs, or Kubernetes Enhancements Proposal, KEP. It is essentially a design document that is a way to like propose or communicate and coordinate efforts with different people on new efforts in the Kubernetes project. So if you want to create any feature, you write a KEP. And this is if you've hung out in the Kubernetes project or the upstream community, you might have heard this name a lot. And this is a very, very important part. So it's like crucially understand what KEPs are and how to find them and what to do with them. So how to find them? So you can find all of these proposals in a repository called Kubernetes/enhancements. And you'll frequently hear it being referred to as the enhancement repo. So people will be like, have you looked at this KEP in the enhancement repo? Things like that. So people say enhancement repo, this is what they're referring to. And when I say like you need to write KEPs for features, the next thing that usually comes into people's mind is that does every small change in Kubernetes require a KEP? The answer is not really, but also like it depends. So what do I mean? So most major changes that involve new features or API changes, deprecations, additions, multiple stakeholders, or anything that impacts the user experience of the project definitely needs to go through the KEP process. Any policies changes as well. So you're changing the policy that affects the whole Kubernetes project needs to go through this as well. If you're changing like small test fixes, code refactoring that are generally not surfaced to the users, they don't have to go through the KEP process. There are exceptions, of course. For example, if you're changing the GitHub automation for the project that affects contributors, but maybe not users, it still needs to go through the KEP process. But since this means that we have like a very detailed document for most big features, these documents also end up being very useful for learning about the internals of Kubernetes. So if you want to learn more about Kubernetes, definitely look for KEPs. KEPs. I'm going to keep repeating this 1,000 times. Like KEPs are very, very important. And for this reason, exactly, Madhav, I know we'll be like referring to Madhav a lot, but he's been doing really amazing work across the project. He started a new initiative called a KEP reading club, which is similar to like a book reading club. And it's a great way to get more context and background on why a feature was written the way it was. Most of us know, like you can figure out how a feature works by looking through the documentation. You can even figure out how it works by looking through the code. But the why behind it, not the how and the what, the why behind it, why was it written the way it was, is usually not, I mean, it should be written in like code comments or something, but sometimes it just doesn't get surfaced there. So this is all present in a KEP, and that's why I would like really suggest you all to like look through KEPs and reach out to Madhav if you're interested in this. This is also at an actually India-friendly time. So I think it's around 8 p.m. on Mondays. Is that right, Madhav? When is the KEP reading club usually?
Yeah, so 8:30 p.m.
Okay.
The next one is probably on 21st. Sorry, next week.
next week? Do we already have a cap?
It's next to next week, right? So
yes, so once in 2 weeks, 8:30 p.m. on Monday, IST.
Great. And do we already have a cap in like that we're looking to cover in the next one?
One is there, but I don't know, like bonus points if someone from here can suggest another one for that meeting.
Great. So like now you'll have like one action item to take forward to. Like if you want to know why a feature was written the way it was, find the gap, which I'll tell you like in a minute how to find the gap. Just take the link, let Madhav know that you're interested in this, and then he'll figure out the rest, and you can just join the meeting and participate and discuss. It's more like a reading club kind of thing. So you just discuss. It's not like someone presenting it to you. If you're feeling shy, you don't even have to talk that much. So just let Madhav know, and he'll figure it out. Cool. So yeah. So like, let me show you what a cap looks like. So Kubernetes/enhancements. This is the repo that you'll go github.com/Kubernetes/enhancements. There is a very handy caps package in here, caps directory in here. And caps are also organized depending on SIG. So if you want to look at SIG API machinery caps, here's where you go. And SIG multi-cluster, there you go. I see a question that says, are the calendar invites for this? Yes, if you join the SIG architecture mailing list, you should get a calendar invite, but Madhav can probably add more details. So yeah, so SIG directories. I am going to very selfishly show you a cap that I wrote because I know better about it. So I recently wrote a cap for API machinery around, where is this? Open API, what kind of information goes in OpenAPI. So before I show you what the document looks like, I won't cover what the feature is about, but like just what can you find in a cap? There's this YAML file called cap.yaml for each cap. We use YAML everywhere. We're going to use YAML here as well. There's this like title and all of that. Who's the author of the cap? Which is the owning SIG, and there's a status which says whether the cap is implementable. It's already been implemented. It's still in discussion. There are different names for the status, which I don't remember exactly what they are, but there's like status. Who reviewed the cap? Who approved the cap? I actually like this part a lot. So it says C also. So it's just references to links that are that give more context behind the discussion. So if you like go to this link, you'll find a mailing list thread about why this feature request came about. And this is also pretty important. So what stage is it in? So you have features that are alpha, beta, and GA, and which Kubernetes version is it targeting? So like for 1.22, this is going to be in alpha phase. So it says alpha 1.22. If it's like a beta thing, there'll be another field here which will say beta 1.23 or something. So the cap.yaml file is a very good way to understand which stage is the cap in, who wrote it, like metadata about it. Now let's come to the main cap. The table of contents usually looks similar for almost each of the caps. So you have summary, what is it about? Motivation, why are we doing this in the first place? I actually like this portion a lot too because it tells you why. I mean, we know, okay, fine, XYZ features works like this. Why was this brought about? What was the problem behind it? Like the history and the context is pretty useful. Goals, what are we trying to do? Non-goals, what are we not trying to do? Proposal is the exact thing that we are proposing. And you also have to include like test plans, some constraints and caveats that you have. Another very important thing in a cap is this thing called a production readiness review. It's also called PRR. You don't need to worry to like remember this or anything right now, but one thing to understand is, so like we have a set of questions. It's a questionnaire. So we have a set of questions around just making sure that your feature is ready for production. So it has quite like most of these questions are not relevant for this cap, but like how can this feature be enabled or disabled in a live cluster? How can you roll out and like what if you're doing an upgrade? How does that work? Like how do you roll back? What was the upgrade path tested? Monitoring dependencies, how does it scale? Things like that. And implementation history. And another part I like most about KEPs is the alternatives, because see over here, if you see like there are 4 alternatives written down. So we went through multiple proposals, and then we discarded some of them and just said, okay, this is not going to work because of whatever reasons, right? So like you can figure out the context behind a bunch of them in KEPs. So KEPs are very, very useful documents, and that's why we have like a reading club surrounding it. I mean, if there's one thing you get out of this, go to this reading club for sure. Yeah, like it's pretty useful. Definitely look through KEPs that you're interested in. If you're choose whichever SIG you want to choose, go through them, read a document. If there's a feature you like, reach out to Madhav, and then we can also invite the authors. So like we sometimes do that, invite authors or reviewers of the KEP to talk about what went on when they wrote it. Cool. Next, we are going to talk about code. So we've talked a lot about what of the Kubernetes community, like what is the Kubernetes community, how it's organized and all of that. Now just like, let's dive into the code base. I am going to do a quick walkthrough of the main Kubernetes code base. I'll give an overview of how the code is structured overall, but I will not be going into the very specific details in the interest of time. So when I say the main Kubernetes repo, it's github.com/Kubernetes/Kubernetes. This is often abbreviated to KK because we're lazy. And let's just dive right in. Yeah. So Kubernetes. This is a huge repository, so most people get super intimidated when they look at this. There's so many packages, there are so many directories, I don't know where to look at. And if you sometimes look at it, it feels like code is duplicated in a lot of places. It is not. We'll look into why that feels like that sometimes. And yeah, let's just dive right in. So I'm going to cover a few directories in this session. So the command directory CMD, docs is pretty self-explanatory. Hack, we're going to talk about package and staging and test. So first, let's just look at the command directory. So the command directory contains the main functions of various binaries that we have. When I say binaries, so like kubectl, kubeAPI server, controller manager. If you want to understand the entry point for these binaries, it's all here. So if you look at kubectl, go, and we find a main function here. So main.go, kubectl.go, basically main functions are there in this command directory. These are, if you want to start out understanding one of these components, this is a very good place to like just figure out the entry point. Next, let's look at the hack directory. So hack, there is a lot of hacky scripts. So it's mostly Bash and Python. A lot of Bash actually, and unfortunately a lot of Bash. So you'll notice, like if I keep scrolling down, you'll see that there are a lot of scripts which have the update prefix, right? So like update code gen, update conformance, I don't know, update generated, a ton of files. Verify all, verify API groups, verify basil, blah, 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 like update and verify. Why do we have these prefixes? So Kubernetes has a lot of auto-generated code. So we write code, but we also auto-generate code like automatically. So these scripts are basically used for generating code. So if you do hack update code gen.sh, it does some amount of auto-generation of code. Then you have update generated docs, you generate documentation and things like that. If you do update all, it will run all of the update scripts. So whenever you are making any change to the Kubernetes code base, you will need to update some code or auto-generate some code or the other. So you will need to run some of these update scripts. Which update scripts to run comes with, like, you will get to know that with practice. So you don't need to know like, oh, the script is for this reason. Nothing like that. You can run the update all script, but it takes a very long time. So I usually just let the Kubernetes CI do the works. I'll open, if I don't know which scripts I need to update, I'll just open the pull request. The CI will fail, like it will say like you need to update these scripts. You can just do that. With practice though, you will come to know that, okay, fine, if I change some part of the code that requires code generation, I need to use this one. Verify does pretty similar things. So almost for each update script, you will have a corresponding verify script. So if you do update OpenAPI spec, there'll be a verify OpenAPI spec. So just to verify whatever you've updated is correct or not. Don't need to worry too much about these, but just have an idea that there's something called as an update and a verify script. There are also pretty other handy scripts, and I'll just call out 2 of them, which are pretty useful. So if you want to install etcd on your system at the correct version that the Kubernetes master branch or whichever branch you're working on requires, you can use the install etcd.sh script. It will just automatically install etcd at the correct version for you. This is like the most important script of all. Local up cluster. So if you are making any change to the Kubernetes codebase, and if you want to create a cluster with those changes, you can use this script. So it will create a single node cluster for you, and you can play around and test however you like. So the hack directory, lots of bash, lots of CI scripts involved, and helper scripts to help you create a cluster. Now let's go on to the package directory. Package, historically, almost all of Kubernetes code was in the package directory. Later, we realized that's a lot of code in a single directory. It's becoming too huge of a monolith. Let's break it down. So we moved some of this code into other repositories or other directories, but a significant chunk of it still remains in package. I won't go through all of the directories here, but I will talk about one. So APIs is an interesting one that we'll cover in a bit. But I will talk about this package called controllers. So all of Kubernetes controllers are in the directory called package/controller. So if you want to know about deployment controller, the namespace controller, the garbage collection controller, how does that work? All of it is here. This is pretty useful if you want to understand the business logic behind how these controllers work, business logic behind how a deployment works. So all of this goes in the controller directory. Really, really useful to understand. So if you're just like looking to even understand Kubernetes, I'd say take a look at this directory for sure. We're going to come to package APIs in a bit, so I'll just keep this open. We're going to look at staging next. So staging is a pretty funny, interesting directory. So you have this thing called source.k8s.io, and you have a lot of directories here. These are actually the code over here is copied to some other place. Why do we do this? If you've written code on top of Kubernetes, you've probably used the Kubernetes client. So you used Kubernetes/client go. So you see code over here and you think, okay, so we add code directly in this repository, but that's not the case. We add code in the staging directory, and a bot copies code from the staging directory to this Kubernetes/client go. You likely won't need to care about the copying of it or like the mechanics behind it, but it is pretty important to understand because staging, there's a lot of code in staging, and understanding how staging works, why do we have a staging directory is pretty crucial. It's a very, very important part of how the code is organized in Kubernetes. So you have staging directories. So one other question that comes up is like, why are we doing this whole added effort of copying code from staging to another repository? The main reason is because if you want to import client, if you are a third-party consumer, if you want to import client go, if you're using the staging directory, you'll have to import the whole Kubernetes repository, and that's a lot of code. You don't want that much code. You just want client go portion of it. So we copy code into another repository, so you can just import the smaller one. So it's just to break down and make sure like people who are consuming Kubernetes are not importing a huge chunk of code. So you'll find pretty much all that. So like kubectl main code is here. We've talked about that in the chat for a bit. So like kubectl is over here, code generator is here, client go is here, API server, API machinery. So that's the main glue code that holds the API together, and the API. So let's go to that. So there's this directory called API. You'll find all the API groups here. So if you're familiar with how Kubernetes work, so deployments live in the apps group. Then you have batch for jobs and a bunch of other API groups. Now, if you go to package APIs, you'll find a lot of these directories here. And if you start looking at like what is in here, right? Like I won't go into detail, but just something that confuses a lot of people. Apps, you go types.go file. Okay, right. And then you see a stateful set struct here. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing. Apps in the staging directory, apps, v1, types.go, stateful set struct here as well. Are there two stateful set structs in two different packages? If you actually notice there are like more of these, what is happening here? Why is this like two, like why are there two or more files for the same piece of code? So Kubernetes has this concept of internal and external types. Since you can have different versions of the same resource, you can have stateful sets in v1, v1 beta 1, v1 beta 2. We will also need to convert between versions to ensure backward and forward compatibility. So there's a lot of conversioning that happens between v1 to v1 beta 1, v1 beta 1 to v1 beta 2, v1 beta 2, v1. So a ton of them. And this conversion conversion systems can grow a lot when you have a lot of versions. To make it easier, we have a hub version called the internal version. So the internal version lives in package directory. So if you go to package APIs apps types.go, it's internal version. And for each external version, it will be in the staging directory. So apps, v1 beta 2, v1 beta 1 and v1 beta 2. So you'll have external versions here. So these are copied out to another repository that you can import. So you can always import external versions. You can never import the internal version. You should never care about the internal version. It's internal, right? So that's in the package directory. If you didn't follow any of this, that's okay. I think like codebase walkthroughs work best as a recording. So I hope it could be useful like when you refer this back again. But this is also like very important to understand because it gets very confusing when you're working through code and see the same code, like it feels like it's duplicated in a lot of places, but it actually is not. Anyway, so let's go on to the final directory, test. So we always have to test our code. We have three types of tests: unit tests, with other types of code also, but like unit tests, integration tests, and E2E tests. Unit tests are in the packages themselves. So whatever code you're writing in whichever directory, you'll write an underscore test.go file in that same directory itself. So that's why the unit tests go. Then you have integration tests that are in an integration directory. And then you have an E2E tests in an E2E directory. So if you're adding a new feature, you should always write at least integration tests, if not E2E ones, depending on the feature. What are the difference between integration and E2E tests? So integration tests are not run against a full-blown cluster. So it's run against just the API server. So there are not really pods or containers here. So you're just talking to the API server directly. For E2E tests, they are run against a real cluster. So there is a concept of like containers and pods that come in here. So one other thing just to keep in mind around what E2E tests are, what integration tests are, how to use them. There's also like a framework for it. So let's start with QMARC, for instance, if you're writing scalability tests, so we have a framework which allows you to create fake nodes sort of called hollow nodes. So I won't go too much into that, but like there's a ton of framework for mocking different kinds of tests. So just to do a very, very quick recap. So command directory contains the main functions, the entry point of everything. Hack is just a lot of hacky bash scripts pretty much. The package has a lot of business logic, including the controllers. So if you want to know about controllers, here's where you go. Package also contains the internal versions of all resources. Staging contains repositories that are copied out to its directories that are copied out to its own repositories. So that's why you look for staging like client go external versions of APIs and things like that. Test is for integration and E2E tests. hope this was somewhat useful and like kind of breaks down the big Kubernetes monolith. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the codebase walkthrough. Quickly gonna cover how you can find your first issue, because this is the main question that people have after like pretty much everyone asks this, right? Like how to find your first task to work on. So most open source projects surface a list of issues or tasks for beginners, and Kubernetes does this too using a GitHub label called good first issue. So if you're just starting out in the project, you can go to the link go.kh.io/good first issue. And the good thing about these is like they have no barrier to entry. So as a new contributor, you should be able to tackle these without advanced setup or domain knowledge. So even if you're new to Kubernetes, that's perfectly fine. You can learn things on the fly. So you don't really need prerequisites. Even if you need any prerequisites, like if you need to know networking, it will be called out in the issue itself. So they're pretty detailed. Talking about details, it also includes the solution, background knowledge, context, even links to relevant code that you need to change. Everything is explained in the issue itself. And the best part about these issues is that you get a dedicated mentor who will work with you to get your contribution merged. And I'd really recommend starting out with this because a lot of existing contributors jumped in this way, including me. I think Madhav, Arsh, and Naparan, like everyone have started this way. So like try out looking at good first issues. So when you've solved a good first issue, you can take it another set of issues with the label help wanted. So these issues also have a low barrier to entry and kind of have like a Goldilocks parity. So like not too high that a core contributor would do it, but not too low that it isn't useful for a core contributor to spend time to review it, answer questions, and help it get into a release. So these are also really, really good places to jump in. One I think I do see people complaining about is that since these are such good issues to start with, they go away in like seconds. So minutes or hours or whatever. Like you create the issue, I guarantee you, like I would say at least give it 3 or 4 hours, one or the other will pick it up. So it's pretty hard to find them, which is okay. If we talked about the in-depth channel on Kubernetes Slack, so a bunch of us contributors keep posting good first issues there. So keep an eye out on the channel because that's like a very good place to find these issues on time. Other slightly ad hoc, but actually much more useful ways to jump in would be to refactor and document code, write tests, and help fix test failures. I want to call this out explicitly because sometimes folks think that writing tests or fixing them is not really a fancy or shiny contribution. However, Kubernetes is in a phase where we want to make it more stable. We don't really want to add more features. So honestly, the project would love and absolutely love your contribution if you wrote tests or fixed them. But the other question that obviously comes up is like, I don't know which tests to fix or which code to refactor. Ask us. Like these are slightly more ad hoc ways. There can be GitHub issues too. So like go look at them. But if you don't know, if you're still confused why to jump in, ask us and then we can tell you like something like, I'm working on this feature and I've noticed this is not right, but I don't have the time to refactor it myself. I'll let you know. So like ask us in the in-depth channel and then we'll let you know. Now, like Divya mentioned, not all contributions have to be about code. In fact, I would actually go on to say that to keep a project like Kubernetes sustainable, you need a large amount of contributions that have absolutely nothing to do with code at all. So some examples of that including triaging issues, helping improve documentations, and writing blog posts. If you've used Kubernetes and you've stumbled across Kubernetes issues, you might have noticed that there are several GitHub issues that are auto-closed by a bot, and that can be annoying as a user. I do understand that. But why do we do that? Because we don't really have people who can help triage issues. We just don't have people that we cannot care about all of the issues that come in because we just don't have the time and the bandwidth to do it. So we really need people to help triage issues. Even if you don't know the answer, that's totally okay. Just surface it to the SIG. Make sure it doesn't get lost. Talk about it in meetings. It's okay. Like if you don't know how an issue works, you can just say like, hey, I noticed this issue. I'm interested in helping fix it, but I don't know how. Can you provide me guidance on it? Just hop onto a meeting and say that. Right, so triage, I cannot stress the importance of this. Like triaging issues is very, very important. for you as a user as well, if you're a user, because if you create an issue, it's just gonna get lost in the whole issue world. So I've not been talking about issue triage a lot, but that's very important. There have been several folks who've been doing this consistently too, issue triage, and have been promoted to lead positions in the community. So because for good leadership, you need to care about broader aspects of the project, right? So just writing code is not enough. And these type of contributions are actually a gateway to more bigger roles. To more bigger roles in the community. What is happening? So let's look at one action item that you can take here. So SigNode, that works on Kubelet and Node, is having a bug scrub session today. I believe it's already started. So they're doing a 6-hour time period where they're working asynchronously. I think it's a channel called SigNode Bug Scrub. So one of the Indian contributors, Aditi Sharma, she is leading that session. I'm not sure if they're hopping onto a meeting, but you can join the SigNode Bug Scrub channel and find out more about it. And you can learn about how we triage issues. And if there are issues that sound interesting to you, you can also volunteer to work on them in the sessions. Very, very good place to start and reach out. And this is at so they're also running it across different sessions. So APAC friendly, so Asia Pacific friendly, there's one Europe friendly, and there's one North America friendly. So there's it caters to all time zones. So check this out. If you don't know where to find this bug scrub session, ask in chat or in the in-depth channel, and we'll point you to it. Now, once you get started with contributing, you want to move up the ladder. You want to feel like you're progressing, right? Just contributing is not enough. So how does that progress look like? How does that ladder look like? So first, you become a member of the Kubernetes organization. And to be very honest, this bar is not that high. Even if you submit 5 to 6 pull requests, you can become a member of the Kubernetes GitHub organization. We have a lot of members, so this is not a high bar. So I really, really suggest everyone here to try to at least achieve this one. Start contributing, but stick around for a month or two, and this is very much possible. Now, then you become a reviewer when you start reviewing code, and an approver when you can sign off on PRs. So you start reviewing a little bit, you get promoted to a reviewer. And then when you consistently review and people feel like they trust you to actually sign off on the code, they promote you to the approval status. And eventually there's this thing called an owner who sets the priorities and provides leadership for sub-projects. So we're talking about this in the chat. So kubectl, for example, is a sub-project of 6CLI, and the people listed as owners for kubectl, they set priorities and provide leadership for kubectl features or whatever, everything that goes around kubectl. And contributors also get the sweet Kubernetes patch. So a fun fact about this patch is that it's actually sold for $1,000 on the CNCF store. So you can't actually buy it unless you want to spend $1,000 on a patch. So you can contribute and get this $1,000 of patch for free too. For those who like mentorship, because everyone does, there are also specific programs around this. So some examples of the popular Google Summer of Code program for students. I started as a Google Summer of Code intern, so I can tell you this works. There are several other contributors who started out like that as well. So this has worked pretty good for us. There's also Outreachy and Linux Foundation LFX mentorship program. And most people think that these are usually for students only. That's not the case. The LFX program is not just limited to students, and anyone can apply. So take a look at it. I think it's run a few times a year. So keep an eye out on those. And I want to call out one of the recent LFX interns for Kubernetes, Ash, who's also in this workshop, and he's talked about his journey. His work over the internship program has been immensely impactful for the project. So Kubernetes is a very big project, which means it also has a lot of dependencies, and analyzing these dependencies were turning out to be quite a struggle for us. So he single-handedly worked on a project called depstat. So it was his own GitHub repository, and then we thought oh wow, this project is really useful. And then we later brought it into the Kubernetes project, and we're also using it for the main Kubernetes repo. And I also really like this tweet from Dan, which points out how this tool is helping highlight removal of 16 dependencies. This pretty much never happens, and we could never really understand how many dependencies are being removed before or added before. So this tool has been really, really helpful. So I just really want to call this out. So like these internship projects can be very impactful. So reach out to us if you want to know more. And also, not only this, he's been working on a lot of other aspects too, even after the internship. So want to know more about the internship program, how to get involved, what is the LFX internship program about, which is not just for students, by the way. Reach out to him and learn about his journey. Yes, and I love his GitHub username, like it's private out chat. And I've been speaking for a long time, so I will stop talking now and let Nabaran talk about the rest. Let me figure out how to stop sharing my screen.
Awesome. Let me now figure out how do I share screen. Zoom on Linux with multiple screens is weird.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I got the correct one. Yeah.
Yes, we can see the slides.
Okay, good. Full screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm going to talk about the release team shadow program. This is also one of the mentoring initiatives that we run in the Kubernetes community. This is being run by SIG Release as a mentorship initiative, which lets people onboard into the release team. Now I'll give you a brief overview of the release team even before going into the shadow program, because that's really important to understand if you want to get started as a release team shadow. So the Kubernetes release team is a sub-project of the special interest group release. They're responsible for day-to-day work required to successfully release Kubernetes, while the SIG at large is focused on improving this process itself. So there are like several verticals or focus areas in the release team. So as you can see in the pictorial, there are enhancements, CI signal, bug triage, docs, release notes, and a communications team. So all of these, each of these teams handle a specific area of the release cycle. For example, the enhancements team coordinates the features that will be released. CI signal team continuously ensures throughout the release cycle the quality of the release. They ensure that all the tests are passing fine, nothing is flaking, and all is good amongst the artifacts that are being generated. So you can find all of this, like what each role entails in the handbooks. And one thing to note here is the release team follows a really hierarchical team structure. So an overall lead is designated for each release along with a lead for each of these verticals or sub-teams. There is also an emeritus advisor who is one of the previous release leads. They come in to advise the release lead in critical teamwork terms or any workflow improvements that they want to have. Even the emeritus advisor handles the shadow program. So emeritus advisor helps in all of those day-to-day activities. Now on to shadows. So as you can see, along with each role lead, we have shadows. So all of these roles have a set of like 4 to 5 shadows. And the goal is to mentor them in order to lead in a future release, that specific role or the overall release. So you start becoming a role shadow, then you become a role lead, then you volunteer for the release lead shadow position, and then eventually can become the release lead. So this is how the hierarchy goes. Although like if you start with one team, there is no foundation that you can't hop onto another team. You can do it in a future cycle if you like to explore more. Now coming to the main topic, what is the shadow program? So think of the shadow program as an apprenticeship program where you kind of intern in the release team and try to learn by doing things. You basically tag along the lead and help the lead in the day-to-day activities of the team, of that role. So a shadow is expected to do that. And this program gives a unique opportunity to help all the new contributors get a breadth first knowledge of the Kubernetes community. So being in the release team, you will communicate with most of the SIGs and get to know like what work they are doing and This way you get a breadth idea, and then you can basically choose the area that you like and join that. Sorry for the noise in the background. So how do you sign up to Shadow? In the last week of the any of the release cycles, the emeritus advisor and the release team lead posts a sign up form on the mailing lists. So it is really important to join the Kubernetes dev mailing list where all of the announcements go in. So that is the time you should start looking at the process, and like if you're interested, go look at the docs, read through them, and I'll cover the process once more. So even before filling up the form, you should really read the role handbooks to understand the responsibilities of each of those roles. Now, why this is important? Because it is very important to know what you want to achieve by the end of this program. That's how the community can help you better. You should also ask on the SIG release channel on Kubernetes Slack in case you have any doubts. You can also reach out to the previous or incoming role leads. Do ask them once before if it is okay to DM them. Then once you find what do you want to work on, just fill up the form. Now, a quick tip there is provide crisp answers to the questions in the form, so that when the leads are vetting your application, they know why exactly you're trying to be a shadow in the release team, and also what are the previous experiences that drove you to that decision. And after you fill the form, just wait for the selections to be announced. So in the past year, the shadow program has turned out to be very competitive. We in the previous release, in the near past release cycles, we have seen 100+ applications for just 30-ish shadow positions. So please don't be disheartened if you don't get selected. You can apply in the future cycles or help out in other tasks of SIG release. As an open source project, we always need contributors. So the release team shadow program is a very important program in SIG release, but it does not mean that there are no other opportunities in SIG release to get started. As we understood in the earlier sections of this workshop, join the mailing lists, join the Slack channels, show up in the meetings. Even if you can't show up in the meetings because they're in a very inconvenient time at this point, just be active on Slack. Take up things, read through the conversations, and that gets you started. So that's all on the release team shadow program. In case you have any questions, do keep on putting them on the chat, on in-dev, SIG release, or reach out to me if you're shy asking in public, although I really suggest you to post questions publicly, because then a lot of other viewpoints also come into the picture. Cool. So we are going to take a break for 15 minutes, but before that, let's talk some legal stuff. So in order to contribute to Kubernetes, the project requires you to sign a contributor license agreement. Now, what this means is you just need to sign a document, read through the terms. It just means, so CNCF needs to determine your the legal status of each line of code being contributed to. So when you sign the CLA, it just gives license to CNCF to have the code and publish it as part of the Kubernetes project. There are two kinds of CLAs, individual and corporate. So do check in with your organization if you need to sign a corporate CLA. Please go through this link to understand the process and read through each of the details. Now, throughout the break, I highly encourage all of you to sign the CLA, as that this would be needed when we get onto the hands-on section before ending this workshop. And since we're giving out swags, this is also a prerequisite in order to get your PR merged. So do go through the CLA and sign it. In case you have any doubts, ask it on the chat, ask it during the break on voice, or ask it on in-depth. We would be happy to help. So that's all before the second break. So you can go ahead and have your morning beverage of choice, coffee, tea, whatever. So that's all for the second part of the workshop. Let's hop back in at 12, where we will learn more about the automation. that drives the Kubernetes community and get onto the demo and hands on. Cool. Let me just stop sharing. Awesome. So the floor is open if anyone wants to speak, take a break. Yeah.
Navaran, I have a question for you. Why don't you talk about your experience as the release lead? I'm pretty sure most people would be interested to know that.
Okay, I can do that. So leading a release has been a fun experience, primarily because this is the first time someone was leading the release from, I think, outside the North American subcontinent. I don't remember anyone. I may be wrong in that. But certainly it was the first for a person from the Asia Pacific region to lead a release. So there were a lot of logistical challenges to actually get the team rolling. And one interesting problem that we're trying to solve in the community is the synchronous nature of our communication. So as Divya mentioned, that we are doing Asia Pacific friendly release team meetings. So handling those and then like trying to, so the release lead role is more of like a managerial role. You need to manage like 39 or 40 people. In the release team, you have to ensure that everything, all of the things get done on time. You have to ensure that everyone is okay with the release. Everyone is having fun. They are not stressed out. So this is an important part of the roles, responsibilities bestowed upon the lead. So yeah, it was a fun and adventurous proposition. Also, there are some cool things, cool perks that you get at the end of the release. So you get to choose the logo of the release. You get to like choose and design both. So it's your idea. You get to put up the theme for the release. Also, you get to do some webinars and podcasts. So in case all these things drive you to be part of the release team, and if you have doubts, ping me. Don't hesitate. And so I don't see Divya. Did Divya drop off? So Divya has been also part of the release team for some time.
Hey,
Yeah, I'm not
just-
dropped off. Yeah, sorry. Please.
Sorry, I don't see it. Sorry.
just a general question, like what was like the prerequisite for somebody to lead a release team? I mean, just curious.
There are no prerequisites as like there are no hard-bound prerequisites as such. It's just time. So it becomes kind of a day job for you. So you need to invest like 25 to 30 hours a week into the release. In the initial parts, you can do by 15 hours a week. But at the end of the release, it becomes a full-time job for you. So support from your employer is really important. The other thing is the whole journey through the shadow program prepares you for taking up that position. So there is nothing that you would need other than this time requirement when you sign up for this role, because you will be through the program, you'll be through the ladder and already gain context on what each role in the release does. So you would also need a lot of like managerial skills, as in you need to keep everyone happy with everything that you take. At the end of the day, the release team serves the community. It is there to serve the Kubernetes community, and it is there to like make processes simpler for all other SIGs who want to publish features as part of any release. It does. I hope that answers your question. Like, feel free to ask any follow-up.
Sure, it does. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, so as I was saying, Divya, do you want to mention about your experience in the release team? Divya, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
I think our video is frozen. At least it is on my screen.
Okay, oh yeah, same.
Until Divya joins, and I'm curious to know if there are any if there is anyone here who started contributing but faced any challenges and gave up midway or got really confused what to do and how to proceed. We do see people like that, like people who face this problem. So it's not uncommon, but I'm just curious to know if there's anyone here who's faced that.
Feel free to put in any thoughts. We really want to solve any challenges that contributors face in their journey, because contributors are what makes the community. Hi,
So
Ganesh.
this is Raghavendra. Hello.
Hey.
Are you able to hear me?
Yep. Yes, please go on.
Yeah. So actually, I did not start contributing to Kubernetes, but I had started with like some other open source project. Actually, I think last year it was like Litmus Dev or something they had started. But due to time constraint and company like I was changing and all those things, I was not able to continue this. So I had a thought like daily I have to at least contribute 1 hour to this one of the open source like development or anything activity or anything. But I was also like having some other thoughts like I'm not good at this concept or not, or so those kind of thoughts also came, and I did not continue actually. So that kind of situation I had faced. So just I want to again come back to this. That's why I joined this session. Yeah.
One query I have. All the people on the panel, are all of you certified in Kubernetes?
No, we haven't really done Kubernetes certifications.
Abarun, you yourself?
If you mean the CNCF certifications?
Yeah, CKD, CKS, the new security.
Yeah, I am CK certified, but it's usually not required for contributions. Like you don't need it in order.
Okay, I'm just curious. I mean, did you happen to take CKA or anything of that nature or something? And Divya?
No, I haven't.
Just as a coincidence. So.
Sure, absolutely.
I'd honestly say like a majority. I've noticed like the majority of the contributors actually don't have those certifications. I mean, I feel like as a user, it's pretty useful for sure. But once you start contributing to Kubernetes, you do understand the internals of the project, and it's just like doesn't end up being a prerequisite to contributing. So I'm not saying like to get the certification.
I'm not drawing any inferences. It is just to understand.
I'm just like saying this for people who might think like they need a CK to contribute, because we do get that type of questions as well. So it's definitely not needed at that angle. I'm totally okay, totally fine question. No worries with that.
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm Ganesh. Am I audible? Yeah. So I would like to ask a query. What would you recommend for working professionals and have a very less hands-on coding experience, but would really like to contribute to the open source projects like Kubernetes, another OpenStack, and all those? Because I had really tried to get into the contribution, but then there are some project-specific teams that work across the globe, and then time zone was one of the major issue for me as a beginner. But then later on, I really got sent into the other tasks at my office. But then now I'm trying to learn Kubernetes, because we are also growing as a team, and maybe we'll be getting more support related queries for OpenShift as well. So as a beginner, I would like to start with Kubernetes upstream first, and then we'll be moving to Red Hat OpenShift.
So can I take this question?
Sure.
And maybe, yeah. So hi Ganesh, and I basically identify with what you just said, because I am not from a coding background. I come from a primarily infrastructure background, and I did not know Kubernetes when I started off, because we as an organization just started adopting Kubernetes as a product into our infrastructure. So I did not have any knowledge about Kubernetes or coding. The basic knowledge that I did have was that of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and that also it was rusty at best because I basically completed graduation 8 years ago. So that was when I actually remembered having done anything related to coding, really remotely related to coding. Let me just say that. So if you're looking to start off in the project, the very first thing that I would recommend from a perspective of a person who doesn't know very much coding and is interested in the product is firstly try out the product and download it onto your local machine and try it out using the docs that is there on the website. That's the very first thing that I would recommend, and it comes from personal experience because I did not have any idea, and it will not make sense for a person to sort of just directly get into contribution without understanding how it works locally, even if it's just a simple setup on your local machine. First try doing that. Second thing is, if you're looking to get started with upstream contributions, I guess Nikita went through those good first issues and help wanted links, and we've pasted them on chat. Those are good avenues to sort of check out for good first issues and issues that you can contribute to. The second thing that I would say is do not limit yourself to open stream music. Upstream contributions. It's not that only code contributions are valued in the community. Non-code are non-code contributions as well. So if that's something that interests you and there's no hard and fast rule here, you should sort of go ahead and try getting involved in non-code contributions, like maybe contributing to documentation or with contributor experience SIG, or even for that matter release or any of the other SIGs that's involved. And of course, on the in-depth channel, we like we mentioned before, we keep on posting issues that we think could help you all scale up on the contributor ladder. So stay tuned to that as well. But the basic first step would be to understand the product at a very basic level, because even if you're trying to get involved, really you need to know, right, what is it that you're contributing to. You just can't wait. You just can't really contribute without knowing the product. So I would recommend that for your start up thing, you rather start off with understanding the product and then gaining insights into contribution rather than directly jumping into the contribution bit. Hope that answers. That's just my perspective again, though. Nikita, Nabrun, Arsh, Madhav, any of y'all have any other different thoughts? Y'all could totally chat.
Well, I think that sounds it well. I'd also add that, like, to answer this question and a similar sentiment that was brought up a minute ago about, like, if you have a day job that, like, obviously you're not getting paid to work on open source, how do you find time to work on it? And how do you find time to learn the code and contribute? And sometimes you feel you're not good enough. No one is good enough, to be honest. Like, I don't know everything about the Kubernetes code base. Even like the creator of Kubernetes doesn't know it. Like, at this point, it's too huge. So not knowing is a pretty common sentiment across the project. So don't worry about it. It definitely takes time to learn. If you already have a day job, I think Nabaran can answer this much better, because at his previous gig, he did manage both day job and open source. But one thing I do tell people is that you don't really need to put 1 hour every day or like show up every single day, even if you show up maybe once or twice a week. Just showing up is the most important thing for sure, I would say. On Slack, that's also enough. You don't need to attend meetings. I don't attend too many meetings because I have too many meetings on my calendar already, but just showing up on Slack, it works out well too. So show up on Slack. You don't have to show up every single day twice a week is okay, but show up consistently. Consistency is the one thing that we need. We get lots of drive-by contributors, but we don't really get consistent contributors. And sometimes, to be very honest, like if I'm investing in mentoring a contributor, I would also expect them to stick around. Like I want them to see that sort of return of investment of my time. So consistent contributions doesn't have to be 1 hour every day, 1 hour once every 2 days, good enough. For learning, like Divya said, there are a bunch of newbies in the community, and in the in-depth channel or like various other channels, we do like code-based exploration sessions together. We did recently a few weeks ago. So you can learn together with the rest of the people because everyone's in the same boat, right? So we could learn together. So I'd say time-wise, take it slow, but show up consistently and learn with everyone else. You don't have to do this all by yourself because it does get it. Navan, do you want to touch base on like how you manage time before?
I mean, I don't suggest people what I did, but I can detail everyone through my experience. So before being the release lead, all of the things that I did in the Kubernetes community, it was all as part of my hobby, and I used to do it on my free time. So it does get a bit hectic if you take up roles in the community. So I really suggest people, like as Nikita and Divya have mentioned, be consistent. Even if you put in like 1 or 2 hours a week, that's completely fine. So we in the community really value like consistent contributions rather than getting like burnt out by open source. We really don't want people to suffer through that, but burning out in open source is a real problem. So give 1 or 2 hours of your time, devote just a little bit in understanding towards your goal. So that's what, like, one thing is like finding the reason that you're contributing to open source. For me, initially, it was just to learn about something, a really cool project that I found back in 2018, 2019. So when you find that purpose, time automatically comes in. You don't need to devote like huge chunks of your week to this.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions? Or we can, like, if everyone is back from the break, we can get started with the next part. Okay, I assume there are no questions, so let me start sharing the screen again. Cool. Okay. Can I just get a quick hack? Okay. Awesome. So we did talk about a lot of things, like how the community is organized, how our code is organized. But now when you start contributing to Kubernetes, the project is really big, and there are like more than 100K issues / PRs. We recently reached that milestone. It's really important to have automation which handles GitHub for you, because GitHub as an UI needs to be managed somehow. Now, you either have people or you either have automation. So in order to relieve our contributors from doing all of that, we have a great deal of automation which goes into Kubernetes. So the first thing which comes up is labels. So there are a lot of issue or PR labels. For example, here, if you don't sign the CLA, you will see a CNCF CLA no label. Now, no contributor manually puts that. There is a bot which checks your CLA signing status based on your committer email and your GitHub account, and then appropriately puts that label. Also, do note that unlike the basic GitHub experience, in the Kubernetes organization, you cannot manually add labels to a pull request or issue. Some people can, but they do have like maintainer privileges. But we, even the maintainers don't manually put in labels unless something is on fire or they really need to do so. All of the labels in the Kubernetes community are added by talking to a bot. Now this is done so that we can add lots of granularity to who can access what. So for example, if you're not an org member, your code is by default not tested. As you can see here, the last line, KDC robot added the needs okay to test label. So any contributor who is not in the Kubernetes organization, their code is by default not CI tested. So some contributor needs to come and put a /OK to test command to the bot so that the code gets tested. Now, we understand that labels can be overwhelming because there are so many of them. Even like I don't know all of the labels. However, they are what makes much of the test and the community infrastructure of this project work. We use a tool called Prow, which looks for these labels and acts accordingly. Now, labels are also used for like multiple purposes, say triage, planning work, permissions, code reviews, updates to PRs, status of tests, and a lot of other things. So now one common thing about labels is like putting all those labels and trying to understand those labels feels like trying to catch all of the Pokemon out there in the universe. Here is an example of labels that are used on Kubernetes repository issues. Here after I refer it to as KK, just because again we're lazy. You can hover on top of each of these label description on each of these labels to know a brief description about what this does. Not all of the labels have them, but some of them do, and you can get a great deal of information from that. There's a long list of labels, and the usage of them does differ by repository that you are in right now. In the next few minutes, we will go over the most common ones to get started. As with everything in tech, the use and meaning of these labels is frequently updated and tweaked in order to serve the needs of the community. So now coming to a few very important labels required for issues. So when you file an issue, each of those issues need to be labeled with something called a SIG label. So, and you need to have something called a kind label. In the next few slides, I'll explain you what it means, like what all those labels mean. And there is a priority label which is added whenever the specific SIG does triage, or if you know, like if you have talked with the SIG contributors or the SIG leadership before filing that issue, you can also add them. The SIG label. So the SIG label defines which SIG the issue belongs to. You should ideally ask on the Kubernetes contributors channel or whoever you are talking to when filing the issue or in contributor experience. Or you just guess which SIG that you feel that is most close to your issue. Then when the SIG does a triage of their issues, they can come and judge whether this indeed belongs to them or it is for some other SIG. At that point, they can relabel that. On many of those reports, we do have bot automation which detects changes in a PR and applies appropriate labels. If you're not sure, as I said, it's better to label your PR with a SIG than not, because then it gets the right attention. Now, the kind label defines what type of an issue it is. It is really helpful in triaging those issues. So the issue that you file or the PR can be a bug or a bug fix. It can be a feature issue. Usually feature issues are not filed in Kubernetes because we follow that process of enhancements or KEPs, by which all features need to go in and vetted before even they're considered. There are labels called kind documentation, which specifies any documentation needs. There is a design label. There is a failing test label. For example, if any test is failing and it has not been brought to the notice of the owner of that test, you can file an issue and tag the appropriate SIG so that they can look at it. Sometimes the tests don't consistently fail, but they keep on flaking between failures and successes. In that scenario, you put a timed flake label. Cleanup. Millions of lines of code are there in the Kubernetes repository. Sometimes we do clean up. There are PRs open which clean up 20K, 30K lines sometimes. So you can put kind cleanup on those issues/PRs. Onto the priority one. So the priority label defines the criticality of the issue or the PR. This is used heavily in project planning in the Kubernetes project, and you will almost never add this label without closely working with your SIG. So as I said, this is very important to be vetted by someone who knows about the issue or the PR. Sometimes when the SIG does triage, if there is any pending question left to be answered by whoever is filing the issue, they can also put a awaiting evidence triage label. Now, specifically for pull requests, these are four very important labels. The release note label determines the status of the release note. So does your change require a release note when releasing Kubernetes? You can also put release note none, which basically puts a label which when the release notes are being generated, it signals that, hey, no specific change you need to put in the log. Approved and LGTM go through approved and LGTM labels are used in reviewing our PRs. So when you file a pull request, when you file a change, a reviewer will come and LGTM your PR if they feel like you have complete, like the change looks sane. And after you get an LGTM, an approver will come and approve your PR. I'll come to that later on when I explain like what is the flow of when you want to get attention to your change, when I explain the PR workflow. So then it will become more clear. The cherry pick approved label is only used for patches or changes which are backported to previous releases, and it is used only during certain stages of the release cycle. So every month there is a team called patch release team and SIG release who go through all these cherry pick approved pull requests, merge them to those specific branches, and then cut the patch release. So here you can see a snapshot of the Kubernetes/Kubernetes PRs where all of the labels are in action. Now, the bot really helps you in like finding whom you should ask for a review. Here you can see like the bot asks you to assign Joe. You can ask Joe, maybe this is your best bet for getting your PR reviewed. Who else other than the set of people who created Kubernetes? So when talking about finding good first issues and help wanted issues, we saw like how the short link helps you. So the short link redirects to a page which filters everything by those labels. Here again in action, you can see some issues are being marked help wanted. That's all about the labels. But wait, there are more things. Not all bot commands result in a label. Some also result in assigning reviewers and approvers. So say hi to the Kubernetes CI robot. Fun fact, the bot will be your best non-human friend throughout your journey in the Kubernetes community. It helps you a lot by suggesting you changes or telling you what tests have failed and what you can do to rerun them. The bot is very friendly to talk to and gives you advice about your changes. Now, there are a lot of bot commands, but here are some common ones that you will use for getting your changes through the line. You can do a /assign and then @ the GitHub username to assign that person as a reviewer. You can also put a /retest command in your PR command, which will run all of the test suite configured in that repository for the changes that you are making. /close closes the PR, /cc tag someone or subscribe someone to the issue so that they can have a look at it. It's something like a friendly ping. Now, a lot of you have asked questions onto the dev setup, or what is the flow that you should follow when contributing to Kubernetes? So we follow the feature branch ideology. So the recommendation is, so you have the upstream Kubernetes repository. You should fork the repository to your GitHub user, and then clone the repository locally, clone the fork locally, and then add the upstream as a remote. You should keep on like fetching from upstream so that you get like latest changes. Sometimes on a PR, you may need to rebase your changes on top of the master branch if there are any conflicting changes. So we follow this ideology of like checking out feature branches whenever you need to propose any change, and then you push the feature branch to your fork and then file a pull request to the main repository against those changes. So you submit a pull request, you add labels and notes. You should be as verbose as possible while saying like what changes you did in your pull request. This helps the contributor, this helps the reviewers to understand why you are making the change and a little bit background about the context. The bot will kick into action and then validate and comment on the PR with the release note label, if you have signed the CLA or not, whether it needs an OK to test command or not. If you have not specified a kind, it will come and label it to be needs kind. Same for if you don't specify a C. You can add more labels and resolve those review comments. And this becomes like a cycle. So a reviewer will come in, then they will see the changes. If they feel like there can be improvements, they will ask you to do it. You will do the changes, and then the cycle goes on. Now, special interest groups and owners review and approve. They put the /approve command, which adds the improve level, and any other contributor can put a /lgtm, which just says that it looks good to me. So the changes that you are making is fine. So this serves as like an initial path to getting your code reviewed. After all of this, if the tests pass and you have an LGTM and approve label, there is a bot called Tide, which checks on for these criteria, and if those criteria are satisfied, the PR gets merged automatically. The bot will keep on telling you what criteria are missing so that you know what you need to iterate on. Again, the same thing. Okay, so one thing to note here is you might see that we have a /close command. Now, a lot of the common GitHub features are disabled, like closing a pull request in favor of the scalable bot command, so that we can have like granular control over who executes what in the community. So as mentioned, the bot helps you in finding reviewers. So there are owners files scattered out throughout the Kubernetes code base, and they have hints as to who can review this code. So the bot just looks in those files and then gives you suggestions that who can you assign in order to get a review. For example, here Roasty is being suggested to review this code. Now, one of the hardest things about contributing can be getting someone to review and hopefully approve the changes that you have suggested in your pull request. At any time, the Kubernetes repository has nearly 1,000 open pull requests. So simply creating one is not usually enough to get attention. Also, many contributors get a flood of GitHub notifications, so relying just on GitHub pings is not enough. So the first step to make sure that your PR gets seen by people is to have the correct SIG label. Many search for these labels periodically in their triage sessions and prioritize them. Secondly, if you have been part of any mentorship program, contact your mentor. They will be able to guide you who to assign and who is the best person to look at the code if they are not the subject matter experts of that. Otherwise, they can also review your code. Now, if you can attend the SIG meetings of the appropriate SIG, then you can use that to get some attention to the PR. Or since the meetings are a bit at uncomfortable times for us, you can ask us Slack. Someone will come in at their own preferred time and give you suggestions. Or one more way of asynchronous communication is you can send an email to the mailing list of that SIG. These are some of the ways. The final way is read the owner's file on your own if the bot is not giving you meaningful suggestions, and determine whom you should tag. However, do keep in mind that all of these project reviewers are usually very busy and have their own day job requirements, maybe in a different time zone than you. So please be patient and don't spam lists and channels with repeated requests. Although usually you would never need to come to this step. If you attach a SIG label and wait for the triage, they get your changes will get seen by the community. Now, the bot gives you all of the test failures if there are any, but if everything is successful, it will show up in the GitHub status. If you want to test in specific CI job, you can say /test and the name of the CI job. See here, the bot makes it really easy for you to find out the command that you need to run. So some quick tips: answer any questions that are put up by the reviewers. Look for messages from bots, resolve them. Seek out any additional owners that need to approve the PR. Now, different reviewers will have different opinions, but don't be afraid to ask for clarification. It's very important to have that cycle of understanding the changes that are going in and how we can make the code base better. That's all on the workflow. So I hope that everyone is active till now. So we will be hopping on to the interesting parts of the session. I will give you a brief demo on how to create a PR in a repository which we call which we call as the contributor playground. So after I give the demo, so what we want you to do is follow the same steps and create a pull request on your own and go through the flow. As we have been mentioning, there are swags for people. So the first 30 merged PRs will get something special. So we will be seeing the status of this merged PRs and send you communication on what's next. So let's get our hands dirty. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this screen of mine. This is weird. Okay. I hope you're all able to see my screen. Can I get some acts? Awesome. Is the font size fine, or shall I increase it?
If you could increase it a little bit, that would be great.
Okay. Awesome. Cool. So what I want you all to do to go to this link GitHub, can someone paste the link on the Zoom chat? Linux on Zoom really makes it tough.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Oh, awesome. Thanks. So what I want you all to do is fork this repository called Contributor Playground and then clone it locally while I show you the demo. So as you can see here, I have forked it and I have cloned my fork and added the upstream as a remote. What I'll do now is create a feature branch for the change. Let's say kcd blr slash something like that. Just any name would do, which makes sense. So the task here is, what you all need to do is go to the India/kcd/blr 2021/workdir directory and create a markdown file like this with your GitHub username and put any content inside it. I just put Kubernetes is cool earlier. What I'm going to do now is make a change here. Okay, let me just so I made a change now. I will add this change to my staged changes and commit. Okay, update. Just write something. Okay. So now I've committed the changes. I will push it to my fork. Awesome. So it is now pushed. So these are the changes I wanted to show you from my terminal. Now I will hop back on to my browser and show you how I create a pull request and go through the whole template flow. I'm just opening up my data. Let me share my screen again. I think this font is okay. So here you see, this is my fork of the contributor playground, and I see GitHub is suggesting me that, hey, you had a recent push to this branch. Do you want to create a pull request? So I can click on compare and pull request. Although there are a lot of ways to create pull requests, I usually go through the GitHub CLI to make my life easier. I'm just showing here just for the sake of simplicity, so that you all understand like what goes on in the UI. So see, GitHub checked the pull request template and pre-filled some information for you. Now, I know what these instructions contain, but I highly request you all to go through the steps and understand what do you require in order to file this PR. Let me just remove this since there are anyways comments. Now, what type of PR is this? As I mentioned, a kind label is really necessary. So here I am doing a documentation. So I'm just documenting that Kubernetes is cool and amazing. So it will label a kind documentation, which we will see what this PR does. Update all numbers. That's all. You can put in anything. I'm just putting something randomly. Now I have to specify like which issue this PR fixes. So GitHub automation just closes the issue whenever this pull request is merged. Since here I'm not fixing any specific issue, I can say none. Do I have any special notes for my reviewer? None. Does this PR introduce a user-facing change? It is not. So I'll just put none in the release note block. But if it involves a user-facing change, if it involves a feature, it is almost always necessary to put this release note label. Because if the community makes any changes to feature sets in Kubernetes, they need to be propagated in the change log. So I'm just going to remove the comment. Now, do I have any additional documentation? Here, you can link any associated caps for which you're raising this pull request, any usage docs that need to go in. Although we follow a, okay, that was weird. Okay, I think since recording is progress, we're good to go. So the community follows a different workflow for adding documentation to your feature. You usually contribute to the Kubernetes website repository, but here you can put some useful information for your reviewers. Now here I don't have anything, so I can just say none. So what else is remaining? I have a kind for SIG, since this is kind of a meta change, I don't need to put in. But usually when you push in a change which involves a feature, you put a SIG label. Now let me create pull request. Okay. Now you see the bot kicking in action. See, so the bot tells that the PR has already been approved. There is a reason to this. Not everyone of you will see this. This is because I am in the owner's file for this directory. So it has automatically put in an approved label. And it also puts in the size of this pull request. There are some simple logical rules which determines what size a PR is. It did say that I have signed the CLA and it put in CNCF CLA yes. So what I'm going to do now, since I know who else is in the owner's file, I'm just going to assign Nikita for approving this PR. Okay, something changed. So you see that the bot has updated the status with not mergeable, needs an LGTM label. So someone still needs to come in and put in a /LGTM for this PR to go in. Let me assign Nikita, and Nikita should have a ping in order to merge this pull request. And here you go. So one of the fun parts of interacting with the bot is we have a lot of interesting bot commands which are just meta and for fun. For example, here we have /woof, which will give you a random dog image. There is /meow. Thanks for elaborating on them. Which will give you a random cat image. There is a /honk, which will give you image of a geese. Well, I'm confused about the plural, if it is geese or goose. So if you see Arsh has tried /joke, now the bot will kick in and put up a random joke as a comment. Let me just refresh. Okay, so you see you have a joke from the bot. So now while we are having fun, the tide workflow is basically looping over all of those pull requests which have the approved and LGTM labels, as well as not have any blocker labels and which passes tests. So in a few minutes, we will see this merging. So I think for this repo, pull requests usually merge in every 2 minutes. So that's all on the demo. Oh, hey, that's great. So I see people from here putting in bot commands. So as you see, the Kubernetes CI robot has already automatically merged this commit. So I didn't even need to do anything. So that's how the automation helps you out in your journey. With that, I will like to keep this session open for any questions while you go through the workflow and raise a pull request. So that's the task. for this workshop. In the meanwhile, feel free to ask any questions related to the task, to the workshop, or anything. It's kind of an open house right now. So one thing to emphasize again, you're not raising the pull request just for swags. Swags are just some side effects of raising this pull request. What we really want you to do is like learn the workflow of a pull request in the Kubernetes community. This will help you in going long in the community. Okay, quick question to others. Does anyone want to add anything else?
So I can see some questions around like, do we need to use Git or you can use GitHub directly? You can use GitHub directly. So you can create a pull request, like edit the file or create a file using the GitHub UI as well. So that is not a part. So like the main part where we're doing this is for you to get familiar with the pull request process, the bots, the bot commands, the labels. So the way you create the pull request is not important. Just getting the pull request created and signing the CLA is the most important one.
Let me check on the CLA. So in case the CLA bot is saying that you have not signed the CLA, do check the email that you're committing your changes with, because that's one of the most common point of failures. And also do check if that email is also reflected in your GitHub account. So these are some important nicks while signing the CLA. No, Anubhav, you need to add a file with your own name in the work dir. We don't need to edit anyone else's file. Okay, I'm going through all the questions. Okay, so one thing, you can put the questions for everyone, because in case like I'm not able to get to the questions, like others can as well.
This is pretty silent. What I guess my next question would be like, what kind of feedback do you all have for the session? What else would you all like to see in a contributor workshop? I know this didn't cover everything, and that was sort of intentional as well, because it's a lot of information and it's not in person. And we used to do these in person at KubeCons, which used to have used to be way more fun and more interactive. But I'm just curious to understand what different kinds of feedback do you all have?
So, hi Nikita, I have just created a new file using GitHub UI only. So I'm just trying to understand again, how do I sign the CLA? Do I need to sign up, right? First.
Yeah. So do you have the link for the CLA, like the one that we posted in chat earlier? If not, I can drop it again. So you will get two options. You'll get an option to sign the individual CLA and the corporate CLA. Usually, if you're not getting paid to do this, or if you're not doing this, if you're not going to be contributing to Kubernetes during your like work hours, then you can use the individual CLA, but you will need to sign it. If you're having trouble signing it, you can reach out to us and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Are there any specific problems that you're facing with the CLA?
I'm not really sure. I just hearing lot of.
So one of the common things that I noticed when creating a commit using the GitHub UI is that it does not attribute the correct email ID, because when you have your email masking on, so GitHub has this thing called it does not divulge your email ID, so it will put in the committer email users.noreply.github.com email ID. So that may be one of the reasons, because I see some of the commits don't have the correct user attributed.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Actually, I'm facing one issue. I posted on a chat. So it is ready to like cloning, and after cloning, it says unable to check out and just a fatal error. And I'm sure I have signed the contract and everything. I'm not sure what's going wrong.
Clone your fork, or did you clone the main repo?
Yes, it is fork, because if you see the URL, it is from my github.com and the name of my user and then contributor git. So it is from my fork, not the original one. Should I put again that same message?
Yes, please do that, because it got lost in the chat.
Yeah, I just send it again.
Can you do a git status actually to understand what's happening? So this is using VS Code, right? Like the direct thing. I have not used the UI directly, so I'm not sure what it does, but git status should tell you what the actual status of the git thing is.
Okay, let me try. We will check and get back to you.
Yeah, sure.
Hey guys, quick question. Not sure if I'm doing it right. So I did a git clone of the main master branch. I created a git checkout using -v so that I can create my own branch on that. I made a file in work directory, and when I'm pushing it, I'm using that command which I pasted it at git push -fn set up upstream origin my own local branch. So but I'm not sure, it says authentication failed, even though if I'm pushing it my username and password correctly, though I have a multi-factor authentication enabled on that. Is it the problem, or I'm not sure?
I'm guessing it's because you're trying to push to the main Kubernetes. Yeah, like did you fork the repo?
I cloned, I branched. I checked out with a branch, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
What does git remote -v tell you? What is the URL for origin that you're seeing?
Git remote -v.
Can you run -v? Yes.
It says origin HTTP Kubernetes -6/contributor/playground.get.
Yeah. So you have you are trying to push to a remote that you don't have access to.
Oh,
so
okay.
the Kubernetes 6/playground you can't push to it directly. So what you need to do is fork and add it.
Understood.
Like
Sorry.
you should have like cloned that fork. But now also you can do it. So you can fork it and add that remote as some name.
Sure, I'll do that. Thanks for that.
Yes. So anyone who is facing problems, the commands are elaborated out in the attendee instructions that Arsh has linked to in the chat. So it's also in the repository that you are cloning.
It will stick around for 10 more minutes until 1 o'clock, until everyone gets a chance to open a pull request. So first 30 merge pull requests will, we'll reach out to you on how to get the swag and everything.
So I see someone who has successfully like resolved their CL issues. So do you want to like I see Pawan who created a PR which was earlier saying CNCF CL no, but now it is saying yes. So do you want to just describe to everyone like how did you resolve that so that others can also learn?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah. I just changed my Git config. My user email was conflicting with the CLA I signed. So I did follow the steps mentioned in the CLA agreement that we have to repush after reconfiguring the email. I did that and bot took care of the rest.
Awesome. Thanks for telling about your experience.
So there was a question about the CI/CD process in the chat. So Navaran covered a bunch of it, like how the labels and the bots actually works. I won't talk about it all over again. But the code for that is in the test infrastructure repository. So all the GitHub automation that we just saw is over there, including how the tests are run, which tests should be run, when, like how the bot should automatically merge when it has a particular set of labels. The component that actually merges automatically, it's called tide. So it's a very weird analogy, like a wave of tide coming and like merging your PRs away or something. So you can take a look at that directory in the test infra repo. And I've also like worked on Trao. A bunch of us here have worked on it. So if you have specific questions, happy to answer.
So some fun facts about Tide. So during the time when we merge most of the code in the release cycle, we see something called a real wave when Tide is basically going over all of the PRs, and it's kind of in a loop where it can't merge anything. So we need to like curate those PRs all the way through. Just a fun fact. The caveats that you will see. Okay, I'm just going through chat, seeing if there are any questions remaining.
I think one thing that I'm seeing pretty often is people aren't really creating forks of the repositories. They're trying to push to the Kubernetes 6 playground repository directly. So you will not have access to it. So you will not be able to push to the repository directly. You have to create a fork. So if you on the right hand side, I think, yeah. So the right hand side of when you like go to the GitHub page, you'll see a fork button. So if you click on fork, you can create a copy or fork the repository to your own GitHub username. So you have to clone that forked repository too and push to the forked one instead of like pushing to the main repository directly. Does anyone else have any other questions or would like to know more? Sorry, Navarro, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to thanks, Pawan, for putting in the commands that help you resetting the author. That is really nice. Priyam has a question. In Slack channel, if we ask for some beginner issues, can we get some, or you have to check in GitHub? So usually the flow is like, do check in GitHub once if there are beginner issues. Also, one of the other ways to get to know what is going on and what needs help is to just show up in those Slack channels, say hi, why are you here, and that you want to work on something new. So most of the SIGs have things that are in flux. They would really want some new eyes on, and they will help you from there. But do check on GitHub once and then ask for it in the Slack channel.
Also, like Aditi has posted a message on the in-depth Slack channel that we were talking about for the SIG-node bug scrap. So they are triaging SIG-node issues right now. And they will also be posting it on Slack, like whatever issues they're looking at. So she's posted the Zoom link. I know it's been a lot of like Zoom calls since morning, but if you're interested, it's happening today. You can learn at least about like how it's done. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But I'll pick up issues that you find interesting. So take a look at that in the in-depth channel for sure.
Folks, you can just come on audio and ask your questions if you want. Much more efficient that. Yeah, Vishal asks, I made the PR, but after that I signed the CLA with the PR change automatically. Commit missing GitHub user. Can you please link to your PR so that we can have a look?
It usually happens when you use an email that's not associated with your GitHub profile or any GitHub profile. So you need to use your email that's present in your GitHub profile. Are there any sessions that people are looking forward to for in the main conference, like on Saturday?
Which ones?
Yeah, a couple of sessions
Which
I'm looking forward to attend. I mean, I have RSVP to most of them. So first, I would like to start with the keynote. I believe it will start in the morning, and later a lot of interesting events.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm really looking forward for that one. One on the very start, the keynote, going with the not really into the deep side of Kubernetes, so getting familiar of how we can do that in that 101 session as well. And then I'm really looking forward for the session is in the, I think it's on the track 3 or end of the day, which is how do we debug nodes and without Docker. So because I know that Kubernetes is getting away from Docker, not exactly the way it means, but yes, there are a few interesting things going around with it. So looking forward for those sessions.
Naveed and Aditi are taking that one, right?
Yeah.
It's Naveed and Aditi. Yeah, that's correct.
So yeah, I'm also interested in understanding Kubernetes API internals. Not sure how beginner friendly it is, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, we're pretty beginner friendly. Like we've tried to keep it such that people who are very new to Kubernetes should also get it. So it should be useful. And if you're like looking to actually contribute, like we'll be doing, like we have a recording of a code base walkthrough there, like actually going through the code, and I don't want to like spoil the talk for you, but you'll see like you can reuse the code base walkthrough in certain ways. So like you'll see in the talk. And the talk about Aditi and Naveed's about like Kubernetes and Docker.
Yeah, that also I'm one of them. It's in the evening.
Yeah. So Aditi is one of the contributors from India who works on Signode. She's pretty active there. So actually, if that's actually very interesting to you, you should probably attend the Signode session that I was talking about, because there is a very active effort going on in removing Docker shim from Kubernetes. So just join and listen, and maybe if you figure out something. Yeah. Or just ask her if you if you can't make it to the meeting, that's fine. There's a Slack channel and all else asynchronously also you can do.
Sure.
Stuff.
Some of you folks are making a PR to the K8's Bangalore 2021. It's not that the directory is KCD Bangalore. So might want to keep that in mind.
Hi, actually I have created one PR now. It's saying some checks are not successful. So I just
PR is that 725.
Yeah, 725, and I commented the meow, and it's just popped the images. Cool, actually.
Yeah, I think it's the
can you
same
tell
issue
me-
what Pawan. I think it's the same issue what Pawan faced. So you need to reset your committer email with the one which is on your GitHub account.
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you come again?
So a lot of other people have also been facing this issue, and Pawan has put in the instructions on how you can resolve this issue. So what is happening is you have committed with an user, committed with an email that is not associated with any GitHub user. So GitHub is not able to determine who.
Oh, okay.
And hence the CLA check is also.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it is a root user actually. Yes. Yeah, I will do it again.
Okay. No worries. So Neha, if you are seeing that message, commit missing GitHub user, it's the same issue.
Okay.
So how did you all like this workshop? Do you have any feedback, changes that you want to see, or any additional content that you want to see in the future? Because this workshop will be done periodically throughout time. It may be us, maybe some other set of people, but we are collecting feedback about the content and incorporating them back into the program. So if you have any feedback, please feel free to give that.
Hey, hi all. I already wrote in the chat that if you can host a session on the walkthrough of picking an issue and then solve that issue, it will really help.
Yeah. So in an earlier iteration of this workshop, what we did was we took a live issue and we solved it in this workshop itself. Now the problem with that is usually in the Kubernetes project, you might have seen that either issues are complex or the simple issues are taken up really early. So we really want to do that, going through the whole flow of finding something really in depth into the product and in depth into the project, and then fix that issue. So this is something that we have been looking or trying to find solutions on how we can do it sustainably. As in always have something that we can solve on the meeting.
Yeah, can you get that link of the session if you record it?
Yeah, I can is the link of the previous one that we did.
But the overall session is pretty much good.
Thanks.
Thanks for the session, everyone.
Hope to see you all around,
Thank you all
like
for
in in-depth
attending.
and contributing. Yeah, and also attending, like, so, like, what, 2 hours, 3 hours,
10
3 hours
a.m.
session. Yeah, I'm personally not a 10 a.m. meeting person, so like having so many people attend at 10 a.m. and stay around for 3 hours is pretty cool.
Prathamesh asks, if you're using GitHub directly to make and create the PR, how do we resolve the CLA issue? So I'm not sure how do you resolve it because I have not tried it. But usually when you create it through your GitHub user, you have to ensure that the committer email is the same that you have signed the CLA with. So as I mentioned, like sometimes if you have enabled the GitHub's privacy feature of masking your email, it will show up as a different username. So that may be a caveat there.
Also, the way this, yeah, I was going to talk about some other topics. So, like, also the way the whole automatic merging works is that there's a merge pool. So, if there are a bunch of PRs which have LGTM approved and all the right labels, they get into a pool and they are tested all over again. So, I don't think this repository has tests, so it will be quick, but they're tested all over again. So since there are lots of people creating pull requests now, there are a bunch of PRs in the merge pool. It's called a merge pool. So like tide and a pool, it's like a very water sea analogy. So it will get merged once, like all those PRs in the merge pool will get merged at once. It takes a bit of time. So if there are more number of PRs, but it will get merged. So don't worry if your PR has been LGTM and approved, it will get merged automatically. Great. We are past 1 p.m. So we'll try to keep this quick. Naman, you had something?
Yeah, I just dropped a link to the merge pool. So if you want to see it in action, you can keep on checking the status there. So usually like the merge pool is per repository and the delay between or the reconciliation loop at which it merges PR is also like configured per repository. That all goes into the automation. I think Nikita linked to the test infra repository earlier. So if you are interested in those parts, SIG testing handles all of this. And if you're interested in, if you want to get involved with how the community manages its own CI/CD, do check them out. Yes, automation also does follow the design principles of Kubernetes.
Cool. We're past 1 p.m. So we'll try to keep this short and let people go for lunch. But please feel free to like create pull requests. We'll still be looking at them. Like if there are more pull requests that come in, we'll merge it. And we'll reach out to you all on like the Slacks part, like on the PR itself. So make sure you keep looking at your GitHub notifications. Cool. It's kind of it for.
We're still not at 30 merged PRs, by the way.
Naval, is this the KCD BLR, not the K8S BLR, right? The directory?
It's KCD. Yes, it's
yep.
KCD.
Got it. Got it. Thanks.
Quick check, guys. Can you please confirm? I see mine is 723 is now ready to merge. It still says it's check 7 not passed one, but it's related to tide, I believe.
Yeah, usually it's that. So
cool.
Because there are PRs in the merge pool and they will be like taken in 2-minute batches.
Yeah, it was also not approved actually, so we just approved it. So should get more soon.
Thank you. You guys are awesome, really. Thank you. So I can say I got a first contribution to open source, at least in a playground.
Yes.
Yeah,
not just in a playground, it's an actual contribution to open
Oh,
source.
no. Wow, thank you. I'm feeling much better. I think I'll take a day
Wow.
off from my office and celebrate this thing.
Put it on Twitter if you
Yeah, I'm not on Twitter though, but I think I should go. Yeah.
I would also say like the Kubernetes community is pretty active on Twitter. At least the upstream community. So,
Sure.
and Deepak, like pretty awesome to see, like you've been staying up late in SFO. Enjoy it from there. Wow. Thank you for doing that.
And it's like 12:30 a.m. for you right now.
Yes, it is. But thanks, guys. It was really wonderful getting to know. I was just trying to get through all these hoops, right? Like signing the CLA and all that. So now it was really good. But definitely, when I visit Bangalore, make sure I meet you guys and buy coffee. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And also KubeCons, like
Yeah. We are actually, all of us are distributed all throughout India, and none of us are in Bangalore. No.
Okay.
So, fun fact. Just for the sake of trend, are you guys hosting any room on Clubhouse? No, not really. I don't think any of us are on Clubhouse. I don't know about others, but I'm not. So
yeah, and also one more thing is, so this is slightly an official workshop, and whatever we do is like official from the Kubernetes side of things. We have to host it on platforms where we can govern the Kubernetes code of conduct, because it's very important. So we usually just stick to the like Zoom, Slack, and those systems.
So basically, where we can have a record of the stuff that we speak of, and like Nikita said, we can sort of, like Clubhouse and Twitter, I don't think allow for any sort of recordings. So we try to maintain that code of conduct going wherever we are.
yeah, one of the things that we really try to focus is to record all of the public sessions and enforce the code of conduct. So we stick to those platforms that allow us to do that.
Yeah, there was a question about if we are doing job service to students. Madhav and Ash are students, but Napar and Divya and I haven't been students for a while. So Napar and I work at VMware. Divya, do you want to?
Yes, so I work at HSBC, and honestly, I haven't been a student for a longer while than most of you. So not a student, but I wish I was. So yeah.
Yeah.
We all want to be a student. We are actually students in a different setup.
Yeah, in a different setup. I mean, not the setup where we are continuously learning throughout the day, and we don't actually have to work. I mean, working is good, but I miss being a student.
Okay, so here is one thing. I think we forgot one important thing that we do is to take a photo of the session. Earlier, when things were like we were meeting in person, we used to take like a real picture and then post it in the workspace that you have been committing to. So I would like all of you here, if you are comfortable to uncloak yourself and be on video, please do so. No pressure. But if you really want to, like, if you can, like, turn on your video, please do so. And I'll do that maybe in 2 minutes. Let's wait for 2-3 minutes for people to just turn their video on.
So I had actually a question on Minitube. May I ask it here? So
yep,
sure. I've been trying Minitube for a while, like since last week, to be honest. So what I observed is my Minitube client and server versions are mismatched. and trying to debug that too. Is it okay to have this mismatch of the versions?
So client and server, there is a rule that, I mean, for backwards and forward compatibility, you can have 2 n-2 versions, like the difference between them can be n-2. So if it's more than that, we can't guarantee like things might work seamlessly. So, but it's better to always have them in the same version for sure.
So do I need to, like uninstall and reinstall the kubectl or Minikube again?
I think Minikube offers, I haven't used Minikube in a while, like I mostly use Kind right now, but I think Minikube offers a way to.
Just got Kind today actually. I'll give a try to Kind.
Kind is very good. Like I would really, really recommend that. It's pretty like easy to like spin up a cluster and you can do various things. It's also used for like local development if that's you want to try out that too.
Okay, thank you.
Also, fun fact, all of the Kubernetes CI is on Kind, so all of the tests run on Kind, and it was designed to run the community tests. So it's really easy if you have any changes in code to load those changes into a Kind cluster and test them in the live cluster. What's the image of duck signify in the approver comments on the pull request? Okay, yeah, Divi answered it. So it's a goose signifying there's a whole story behind the goose. I think it's a game. So if anyone of you has the whole context, please
It's the Untitled goose game where there's a goose which roams around with a knife killing people. And then the 6 security folks sort of take that as a metaphor for breaking systems.
Should we take the picture? I don't know how many people have it on there, but I can just take it.
Yeah, I see.
So how
majority of people
send us the of Bangalore?
Can you repeat that? I didn't quite catch it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to take the photo now. So if anyone wants to say cheese, Kubernetes, anything. So there are two screens. So I'm just going to quickly take photo of one screen and then switch over to the next one. Everyone is ready? Okay. Okay, my computer is failing me. Okay.
Not the right time.
I do understand. But there's a blooper.
Now, Varun, did you take it?
Yes, I already took it. I'm just checking the photos though.
Is everyone comfortable if we put the photos in like the contributor playground, like the KCD BLR 2021 directory? We've done that for the previous version of the workshop, but if anyone has concerns, please let us know right now and we won't do it.
If anyone has concerns, just turn their video off. That's
that
it.
Too.
Yeah,
too.
We will take another photo then. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take that as the one has concerns.
Okay. Awesome. So let's keep it open for maybe 7 more minutes if there are any questions. Otherwise, we may put a hard stop at 1:25 and give you all back like 35 minutes of your day. If not, we can give 7 more minutes back. If there are no questions, you can.
Yeah, I think let's just take it on Slack.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if you're still creating PRs, that's fine. And if you run into trouble, like ping us on Slack and then dev channel, we can hop on to fix it.
Yep.
There.
And Nikita, I'm still getting that error. That GitHub user.
All right. Can you? I mean, it's easier to like debug back and forth on Slack rather than on Zoom chat. So can you post it in Slack and then we take it from there? That works.
Yeah. So what settings here on in this error, right? I'm getting.
Yeah, so missing GitHub user means that the email that you're using to sign your commit is not matching the email that's in your GitHub profile. So it says that it cannot map the commit email to any GitHub username. So you need to make sure that whatever commit you're using, commit email you're using, it's in your GitHub profile. Or the other way around, like whatever email you have in your GitHub profile, you should use that for it. And Sachin, yes, you can totally leave. I'm also hungry.
Neha, what's the PR number?
Neha, yeah, if this was in person, we would have had like lunch or snacks or something. But here we are.
Yeah, in-person events are a lot of fun. And usually the contributors workshop is spread over a day, and it's like really slow paced into like everyone setting up their development environments, everyone setting up all of the stuff that they need to contribute. So it usually was very like hands-on and like, involved. Yeah, I see someone using clicky switches.
So what is the cadence usually in Nabaran?
Cadence of?
These sessions, you're saying that we have in-person ones as well, right? Before this?
So the new contributor workshops have traditionally happened in the contributor summit. And the Kubernetes contributor summit used to happen in each KubeCon, the Europe and US one. So during the pandemic, we have been thinking through the medium of this workshop. And right now, since almost everything is online, the contributor experience special interest group, there is a team inside that, which is the mentoring sub project. They're actually trying to make all of the content into self-paced videos, which new contributors can look at their own wish. In India, this is the second time we're doing it. Last time we did it in, I think, Feb, as part of the Kubernetes Bangalore meetup group. So we really don't have any fixed cadence. I don't know if there would be one more in Indian time zone in this year, but let's hope so. And if anyone of you wants to get involved in conducting this workshop, feel free to ping us on Indev. We would be like really happy to help you through it.
Thanks.
Thanks for the question.
Nice keyboard, Ganesh.
Yeah, that's a really.
That's the sweetest way to say, please mute yourself.
No, but like also nice keyboard. Like that sounds like a really good feedback. But I'm the
Okay. I'm just also going to just stop the recording since we are having an
Oh, yeah.
impromptu discussion. So